Chapter 104. On the square, Zi Ling was half kneeling on the ground, dragging a bloody man in the crook of her arm. Yi Feng Yu's green robe was stained with blood, and fresh blood was constantly overflowing from his body. Zi Ling's clothes were also stained with a large patch of red. Yi Qing Luo stood on the side, expressionless. A pair of charming eyes that seemed to be covered with frost quietly stared at Yi Feng Yu. His face was pale, and the corner of his mouth overflowed with blood. His hand tightly grasped the long knife. Even if he was unconscious, he was not willing to let go. That long knife, only half of it was left. Yi Qing Luo's heart thumped, and her chest was choked with discomfort. She just stood there, her slender body trembling slightly. She did not dare to touch the young man who was lying there quietly. The Mu brothers also came out of the space where they were watching, and immediately trotted over when they saw the current situation. Mu Zifan half squatted down and quickly gave Yi Feng Yu a simple examination. Serious internal injury, excessive blood loss, urgent treatment. Mu Zifei took out a few medicinal pills and stuffed them into Yi Feng Yu's mouth. First stop the bleeding, call someone to bring the stretcher. Two doctors surrounded Yi Feng Yu, busily rushing back and forth. The onlookers all sucked in a breath of cold air. They rubbed their eyes and looked again. Damn it, they were not mistaken, they were really the two young masters of the Mu family. The future leader of the Alchemist Guild, the successor of the Mu family's medicine shop, was treating an unknown young master? One must know that many people in the past begged the Mu brothers to see a doctor, and even offered all their family property. They may not be able to get the Mu brothers to agree. Even the people from the royal family could not shake them in the slightest. After everyone saw the serious injury of Yi Feng Yu, they all observed a moment of silence for the person who injured Yi Feng Yu. Oh, this is the consequence of angering me. Yi Qing Ling's insolent voice came from the side. Because Yi Feng Yu admitted defeat, Yi Qing Qian and the others also teleported out from the number 302 space. Seeing the woman standing quietly in the square, she lowered her head and stared at Yi Feng Yu, as if she was crying. Yi Qing Ling's heart was full of joy. Yi Qing Luo dared to destroy her profound jade heart. Then she would use the cruelest way to expel the people around Yi Qing Luo step by step. She wanted to see Yi Qing Luo in so much pain that she wished to die. Yi Qing Ling thought about it bitterly. The smile in her eyes added a bit of viciousness. Seventh sister, elder sister has already advised you and eighth brother that if you really can't win, just admit defeat. Look. Why did it have to come to this? Yi Qing Jian followed closely behind, pretending to be gentle and pitiful. You can't blame others if you're too weak. In this world, the strong are respected. Ling Fenghua's lips curled up as he spoke. In actual fact, when he saw Yi Qing Luo standing there expressionlessly while Yi Qing Luo was seriously injured and unconscious, he felt extremely refreshed. His cold eyes narrowed slightly as he strode complacently towards Yi Qing Luo. The current Yi Qing Luo was like a stray dog. He didn't believe that at this point in time, Yi Qing Luo wouldn't open her mouth to beg him for help to teach Yi Qing Ling a harsh lesson. If you want revenge, Ling Fenghua's self-righteous words had just left his mouth. Yi Qing Luo turned her head and looked at the Mu brothers. Please, if little Yu is fine, I will repay your kindness tenfold. After saying that, she walked past Ling Fenghua and completely ignored him. Yi Qing Luo walked directly to the main stage. Her line of sight was fixed on old man Ge Yu, who followed her out from the backstage. I want to participate in the admission assessment. On the main stage sat 3 masters, all of whom were highly respected in the Heavenly Academy. Seeing Yi Qing Luo's rudeness, their faces sank. Chapter 105. The implication was that if Yi Qing Luo wanted to take revenge for her brother, then there was no chance. Because in the ability assessment 3 days later, Yi Qing Ling had already become an official student and could not accept any challenges. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up slightly, her eyes narrowed with a cold glint. Half an hour. The crowd was stunned for a moment, unable to react to the meaning of Yi Qing Luo's words. By the time they recovered their wits, the square was in an uproar. Pass the 10 assessments in half an hour? What a joke! For hundreds of years, the shortest record was 24 hours, and this was set by the genius from the Yi family hundreds of years ago. How could anyone break this record? The crowd pointed their fingers at the girl in the middle of the square. No one would believe it. Even the 3 masters on the main stage felt that Yi Qing Luo was making fun of them. However, only old man Guiyu stared at Yi Qing Luo meaningfully. After a while, he stroked his beard and smiled cunningly. "All right, I will make an exception for you on behalf of the Heavenly Academy. As long as you can pass the 10 assessments in half an hour, you can directly become an official student of the Heavenly Academy." The masters wanted to refuse, but after old man Guiyu opened his mouth, they swallowed their words. This old man Guiyu. What kind of existence was he in the Heavenly Academy? Looking at the badge on his chest, there was only one yellow bar. He seemed to be the lowest level master in the Heavenly Academy. But on the main stage, those teachers with 5 to 6 horizontal bars were also very respectful towards old man Guiyu. When old man Guiyu opened his mouth, they didn't even dare to make a sound. Strange, so strange. While Yi Qing Luo was deep in thought, old man Guiyu continued, "If you can't pass in half an hour, I'm at your disposal." Yi Qing Luo raised her head, her eyes were full of confidence. "There's no need for disposal. If you can't pass in half an hour, then you will be my disciple. How about that?" "Disciple? Old man Guiyu, you're not serious, are you?" The 3 masters on the stage widened their eyes and stood up in shock, pointing at old man Guiyu. "There are so many geniuses in the academy, but you chose this one. Don't you know she is the one from 3 Springs sect?" Many people had heard of Yi Qing Luo's good name, but had never seen her before. Hearing the headmaster's words, the person from the 3 Springs sect immediately understood. This beautiful but extremely arrogant woman was the useless young master of the 3 Springs sect. Even if a piece of trash who had been trash for more than 10 years suddenly comprehended the cultivation method, it would still be impossible for him to pass the 10 tests that countless profound practitioner geniuses feared within an hour. Everyone's gaze towards Yi Qing Luo was no longer stunned by her beauty, or pitiful or sympathetic gazes. Instead, he looked down on her and mocked her for overestimating herself. An hour? Is this 7th young lady of the Yi clan a good-for-nothing? She's become stupid. Haha, he's definitely a fool. Some time ago, I heard that she rose to fame with a single battle, beating up the genius young mistress of the 3 Springs sect prefecture so badly that she couldn't even fight back. Rumors are just rumors. All sorts of mocking and ridiculing words rose and fell. Old man Guiyu, who was sitting in front of the main stage, crossed his arms over his chest. His shrewd and sharp eyes stared straight at Yi Qing Luo. "How about it? Have you thought it through?" Chapter 106. Shut up. How can the person I fancy be a waste? Old man Guiyu glared at the few people behind him. "If you scare my disciple away, I will kill you all." The faces of the 3 teachers were red and green from being reprimanded in public. However, they suppressed their anger and sat down, not saying another word. This old man Guiyu was not a simple person. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes slightly, her pink lips hooked and nodded. "All right, I will bet with you." Old man Guiyu was all smiles as he jumped down from the main stage and stood in front of Yi Qing Luo. He stretched out his hand and gently patted her shoulder. "My good disciple, I will wait for your return here, ha ha ha." He had already regarded Yi Qing Luo as his disciple. Yi Qing Luo's mouth twitched. "If you don't play any tricks, half an hour is enough." No, I am such an upright and kind person, how could I play tricks behind your back?" Old man Guiyu waved his hand. The crowd couldn't believe their ears when they saw the scene in front of them. One by one, they dug their ears and rubbed their eyes. But the image of old man Guiyu smiling at Yi Qing Luo was still fresh in their minds. What the hell? It was not an illusion. It was not a hallucination. Old man Gui Yu really wanted to take Yi Qing Luo as his disciple? Especially Yi Qing Qian. Her gentle and beautiful eyes were unable to conceal her own hatred and jealousy. Old man Gui Yu was just an ordinary and lowly master in the eyes of ordinary people. But as one of the 4 sects, Three Springs sect, how could they not know the name of old man Gui Yu? Even her master, the head of Shijing sect, was not as high as old man Gui Yu. Why was Yi Qing Luo so lucky? Previously she had the Overlord's clothes, and now old man Gui Yu had his eyes on her. She was just a waste. What right did she have? The more Yi Qing Qian thought about it, the more jealousy she felt. Her little hands clutched her exquisite robe and wrinkled it. Where do we go for the assessment? Yi Qing Luo didn't want to waste any more time. Old man Gui Yu's lips curled up as a trace of cunning flashed across his eyes. With a sway of his white robe, the heaven pagoda in the middle of the square shook slightly. Shortly after, a door opened beneath the heavenly pagoda. When a ray of white light shot out from the open door, the 3 masters on the main stage could not sit still. Old man Gui Yu, you are. Before he could say anything, old man Gui Yu glared at him. Was there something wrong with this door? The expressions of the 3 teachers were obviously very surprised. What did old man Gui Yu do? He was really persistent. In order to take her in as his disciple, he was going all out. Yi Qing Luo took a deep breath. No matter what old man Gui Yu did, as long as it was the 10 assessments, she would be fine. After that, she walked towards the pagoda. Suddenly, a whirlwind in the horizon brought along a storm of profound energy that enveloped the entire sky. The originally sunny weather suddenly turned dark and gloomy. It was frighteningly gloomy. The onlookers were all attracted by the powerful celestial energy, and their gazes all turned to look at it. A few silhouettes appeared on the horizon from afar. What is that? Nine-tailed fox. It's actually the holy beast nine-tailed fox. There seems to be only one person in the world who owns a nine-tailed fox. Don't tell me he is here. In the dark sky, a white nine-tailed fox was suspended in the air. The nine-tailed fox's limbs were burning with sparks, and its 9 long tails were swaying with the wind. Surrounding the nine-tailed fox were 4 people dressed in black. Chapter 107. The 3 masters stood up one after another, respectfully stepped forward and bowed deeply to the nine-tailed fox. A figure jumped down from the back of the nine-tailed fox. That person was dressed in a purple robe, embroidered with a jade belt, and his hair was fixed with a wooden hairpin. The wind blew and the cloud-like hair scattered. There was a faint smile on his peerlessly beautiful face. It was obviously a smile, but it was so breathtaking, yet it made one's hair stand on end. The aura of disdain was treacherous and piercingly cold. It pressed heavily on the hearts of everyone present, making them want to kneel down subconsciously. On his finger, there was a blood-red ring with a faint flame jumping. Overlord. It's the Overlord. Only the Overlord can tame the sacred beast nine-tailed fox. The elusive Overlord. Is he here to watch the ability assessment of the Heavenly Academy? After recognizing the identity of the Overlord, everyone was excited. The Overlord, the most powerful person in the Nirvana realm, and the world's first palace, the Palace Lord of the Imperial Palace. That was the man known as the Legend. He was mysterious and powerful. No one knew exactly how great his forces were, and no one knew exactly how powerful he was. Greetings to the Overlord. The 3 masters behind him recovered from the shock and got up one after another and knelt down behind Dmo Xian. They were highly respected people in the Heavenly Academy, and it had always been others who fawned on them. Standing in front of Dmo Xian, all of them were instantly crushed into dregs. When the masters knelt down, the people in the square followed suit. The entire examination plaza was filled with a dense mass of people. Only the 2 people under the main stage stood straight and were particularly conspicuous. Yi Qing Luo frowned slightly. What was he doing here? And he even used such a flashy way to make an appearance. Old man Gui Yu and Yi Qing Luo stood side by side. A pair of treacherous eyes revealed a bit of brilliance. Seventh sister, don't mess around. Quickly kneel down. Yi Qing Qian saw Yi Qing Luo was still standing, and immediately scolded her in a low voice. She raised her eyes to take a look at Dmo Xian, and her cheeks immediately flushed red as the young lady's heart thumped wildly. Di Zun was really as handsome as the rumors said. He was so handsome that it made people blush and their hearts beat faster. Her eyes were fixed on him and could not move away. Ling Fenghua knelt by the side, and when he saw Yi Qing Qian's expression, his handsome brows knitted into a ball as a trace of disgust flashed past his eyes. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered with them at all. Under the silent and submissive Overlord's imposing manner, she strode towards the profound pagoda. Come here. A clear and melodious voice that was like mellow fine wine seeped into their eardrums and intoxicated their hearts. Yi Qing Luo's footsteps halted as she frowned. The tens of thousands of people kneeling on the ground raised their heads and looked left and right, wondering who Di Zun was calling. But no one was seen walking towards Dmo Xian. Following his line of sight, all of them looked towards Yi Qing Luo. But very quickly, he shifted his gaze away from Yi Qing Luo and looked towards the direction of the crowd. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched. She knew that Dmo Xian was referring to her. She didn't want to become famous in this way. If she got involved with Dmo Xian, she would also become the target of everyone's gossip. Yi Qing Luo immediately lifted her legs and quickened her pace towards the profound pagoda. On the main stage, the tall and stalwart man's thin lips curved slightly as his eyes squinted slightly. Suddenly, he leaped up and stuck close to Yi Qing Luo. His long arm hooked around Yi Qing Luo's waist. His long hair cascaded over her shoulders. Chapter 108. The air seemed to have solidified. The atmosphere was strange and a little scary. Yi Qing Luo's face suddenly darkened. Let go! Dmo Xian rested his head on her shoulder. We haven't seen each other for a few days, Luo, don't you miss me? I don't. He answered without hesitation. Yi Qing Luo's eyes twitched. You are the Overlord, aren't you afraid of being laughed at by pestering a waste like me? Laugh? Who dares to laugh? Dmo Xian's deep black eyes glanced around, his lips curled up into a very shallow sneer. Whoever laughs, I will destroy that person. That aura that looked down on the entire world suppressed everyone present, and no one dared to make a sound. Did he need to be so overbearing? Yi Qing Luo now deeply understood what it meant by the fist is the hard truth, what it meant by the strong being respected. Those who came to watch the ability assessment were mostly rich and powerful. The 4 great families, 4 great sects, various forces and so on, had all sent their representatives here. These people in the Nirvana realm, no matter where they went, they would be flattered and fawned upon. However, in front of Dmo Xian, they were as humble as ants. No one dared to laugh, no one dared to make a sound. Dmo Xian retracted his gaze. When he looked at Yi Qing Luo, the expression on his face was tainted with gentleness. Luo, aren't you going to ask me where I have been these days? Where you have been, what has it got to do with me? Yi Qing Luo sneered, broke away from his arm and looked up at him. A pair of slightly narrowed charming eyes, cold and absolutely without any extra emotions. Although Yi Qing Luo's words were so ruthless, but in her heart there was an inexplicable feeling of relief. It seemed she was glad that Dmo Xian had indeed returned. The last time they parted on bad terms, it was as if nothing had happened. This thought made Yi Qing Luo's heart suddenly tremble. She immediately lowered her eyes, her long curly eyelashes were like butterfly wings, gently fluttering a few times, slightly flustered. I'm going to participate in the entrance assessment first. Yi Qing Luo turned to leave. Her wrist was once again held by Dmo Xian. Wait. His slender fingers easily circled around the hand that was encircled by the ring. Yiqing Luo stared at the circle of warmth on her wrist, and was no longer as resistant as before. "This is for you." Dmo Xian opened his palm, and a red feather fan floated above his palm. His fingers moved slightly and the feather fan automatically moved into Yiqing Luo's hands. The moment the feather fan entered her hands, Yiqing Luo could obviously feel that this feather fan's texture and material was absolutely not an ordinary item. In particular, this feather fan was blood red in color, and the red feathers were faintly flickering with red electric currents. Just like the profound phoenix ring, it exuded a mysterious power. "This is..." Yiqing Luo's fingers waved the feather fan. It felt great and smooth. Dmo Xian's black eyes narrowed as his long and narrow eyes curled into a devilish arc. "Betrothal gift. Do you have to say something so shocking?" Yiqing Luo had the impulse to return the feather fan to Dmo Xian. "Girl, this is a good weapon, a good weapon." In her mind, Old Man Tsang's excited voice suddenly came. "Gourd flame fan. This is a devouring flame fan that can grow." Glowing flame fan? Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted as she looked at the feather fan in disbelief. There was only one gourd flame fan in the world. Although it was not a legendary weapon, but it was more precious than a legendary weapon. Because the gourd flame fan had the attribute of growth. It could grow step by step according to the user's ability. "Girl, don't you ever reject it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Old Man Tsang knew Yiqing Luo too well, and was afraid that she would really return the gourd flame fan to Dmo Xian, so he spoke quickly. Chapter 109. Yiqing Luo wasn't a hypocritical person. But Dmo Xian's betrothal gift really shocked her. This wasn't the first time Dmo Xian brought up this topic with her. Although she knew very well that it was impossible for her to have any relationship with the almighty Overlord. But everyone has a love for beauty. She was after all a woman. Hearing such a peerless handsome man flirting with her time and time again. What if she took it seriously? Then wouldn't it be better if it becomes real? Dmo Xian suddenly leaned close to her face and his warm breath sprayed on her skin. That warm and moist touch gave Yiqing Luo goosebumps on her skin. The woman in his arms trembled slightly, and her ears turned red in an instant. Seeing this, the smile in Dmo Xian's eyes deepened. Yiqing Luo heard his smiling voice and her cheeks turned red. How did he know what she was thinking? And what did he mean by that? Then become real. What the hell was that? Damn it. Could he not always say something that would cause people to misunderstand? Yiqing Luo silently praised the Overlord's flirting skills for 32 times in her heart. Don't let your imagination run wild, don't think too much. Yiqing Luo hypnotized herself and took a deep breath. Suddenly her elbow lifted up and following that, she lifted up her leg and kicked backwards fiercely. Dmo Xian seemed to have expected Yiqing Luo's action. His body tilted slightly and with a grasp of his arm, he easily blocked Yiqing Luo's attack. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yiqing Luo's figure turned and the gorgeous sunset robe fluttered like a blooming rose. Her wrist instantly broke free from Dmo Xian's grip. Yiqing Luo retreated 5 steps away from Dmo Xian. "I'll accept the glower flame fan. I owe you a favor and will definitely repay it in the future." Yiqing Luo's index finger fanned the feather fan as she clasped her hands together and cupped her fists towards Dmo Xian. Finishing her words, she turned around and headed towards the direction of the heavenly pagoda. Behind her, Dmo Xian's abstruse eyes were like obsidian, pitch black and undistinguishable, so treacherous that not a single color could be seen. The corners of his lips curled upwards, and the arc of his eyes became deeper. The surrounding people held their breaths, their hearts beating like drums. "Get up." Dmo Xian slowly turned around, the expression on his face had already reverted to his usual icy cold and dignified expression. He slowly walked towards the main stage. The 3 masters immediately gave up their positions and stood beside Dmo Xian in a fawning manner, carefully serving him. Everyone had the same question in their hearts. How did the Overlord know the seventh young mistress of the Yi clan? Furthermore, their feelings for each other were clearly extraordinary. Especially Yi Qingqian, her entire face was completely twisted. The last time when Yi Qing Luo had a corner of Dmo Xian's robe, she was already guessing the relationship between Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian. But it had been a long time since he had seen Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo in contact, and heard from Yuchiya that Dmo Xian was only interested in Yi Qing Luo for a moment. Thus, he did not take the matter of the clothes to heart. But today Yi Qingqian had personally witnessed Dmo Xian's attitude towards Yi Qing Luo. That gaze was filled with love. What right did a piece of trash, a notorious piece of trash, have to be favored by the Overlord? The person whom the Overlord liked should be her, Yi Qingqian. How could Yi Qing Luo be worthy of the Overlord? The countless grievances in her heart made Yi Qingqian determined that she must firmly hook Dmo Xian into her heart. Chapter 110. After entering the heavenly pagoda, Yi Qing Luo was transported to a void space. As for the 10 assessments, if she did not guess wrongly, it should be based on the comprehensive strength of intelligence, ability, strength, potential and so on before entering the Heavenly Academy to undergo the assessment. These, to Yi Qing Luo, could be passed in minutes even with her eyes closed. In her previous life, she was regarded as the future head of the family since young. Whatever 10 assessments, whatever tests, those old men would come up with different ways to assess if she had regressed. So, whatever assessment, it was not a problem for her. That was why she dared to say half an hour. After her marrow cleansing, with the help of Old Man Tsang, and after passing the first layer of purgatory, her strength had been greatly improved. Her profound grade had now reached the yellow profound 9th grade. Although this profound grade was not considered the top among the students in the Heavenly Academy, but it was at least an intermediate level. What's more, she had the sacred beast Qi and the glower flame fan that Dmo Xian gave her. After the first assessment began, Yi Qing Luo's face revealed a satisfied smile. Sure enough, it was as she expected. The 10 assessments were exactly the same as her assessment in the modern era. The only difference was the slight difference in strength. But it did not matter. At the assessment square, there were students who were eliminated one after another, and there were also numerous students who challenged the successful students. But obviously, the attention of the people in the field was no longer on these students. They were all looking up, their eyes wandering between the heavenly pagoda and the main stage. On the main stage, the incense which represented half an hour had already burned halfway. Time passed by in a flash. Everyone's heart was in their throats. Old Man Guiyu, half an hour. Can she really pass the assessment? The 3 masters had a complicated expression on their faces. They did not like Yi Qing Luo. If she could really pass the assessment in half an hour, she would become an official student of the Heavenly Academy. If it was more than half an hour, Yi Qing Luo would be accepted as a disciple by Old Man Guiyu. Based on Old Man Guiyu's protective character, wouldn't Yi Qing Luo be able to do whatever she wanted in the Heavenly Academy? Their idea was to hope that Yi Qing Luo failed the assessment, then they would have enough excuses to refuse her admission. But now there was the Overlord. Their hearts almost collapsed. If Yi Qing Luo failed the assessment, the Overlord would be infuriated. The consequences were simply too frightening. They didn't dare to think about it. The assessment shouldn't be a problem, but it's only an hour, he. Old Man Guiyu smiled slyly, his eyes curved. I have specially chosen the 10 most complicated assessments in the Heavenly Pagoda. I will definitely accept this disciple. The 3 masters turned to look at Dmo Xian. But she discovered that Dmo Xian had been resting with his eyes closed and did not show any displeasure towards Old Man Guiyu's words. They heaved a sigh of relief and surrounded Old Man Guiyu to stop him from talking. 10 of the most complicated tests. How is it possible to finish it in an hour? In the Three Spring Sex area, Yi Qing Ling revealed a gloating smile. This little waist is too good at showing off. I think she won't even be able to pass the assessment and will only bring shame to the Yi family. That was what everyone else was thinking. A few hundred years ago, the one who set the record of 24 hours was still a simple test of 10. Yi Qing Qian's vision had always been on Dmo Xian. Hearing Yi Qing Ling's words, her red lips curved slightly and nodded slightly. Arrogant, you have to bear the consequences. She even dared to talk big in front of the Overlord and attract his attention. The 10 most complicated tests that were tricked by old man Guiyu in half an hour? Heh. Chapter 111. Half an hour was neither long nor short. There was still a small part of the burning incense left. Old man Guiyu smiled brightly, his face beaming with joy. Even the way he looked at Dmo Xian was filled with pride. The only thing missing was the word son-in-law. The three masters were sweating profusely as they tugged at old man Guiyu. They thought to themselves, old man Guiyu is indeed a madman. He is not even afraid of the Overlord. Please don't implicate them and cause them to lose their lives. Just as the main stage was bustling, a ray of white light flashed in the heaven pagoda. Vaguely, he seemed to see a slender figure leisurely stepping out from the profound pagoda. She's out. It's the 7th miss of the Yi family. She really came out. Half an hour? It's not even half an hour. There's still a small part of the incense left. Oh my God! This is definitely an illusion. How could it be possible? How could she pass 10 assessments in half an hour? Suddenly, the crowd broke out in a flabbergasted discussion. Everyone's eyes widened in surprise. The white light contrasted with the setting sun. The woman in a flamboyant red dress walked over gracefully. Her fine black hair fluttered along with the strong wind, and the corner of her skirt was like a blooming flower. The woman was devastatingly beautiful, exuding a suffocating beauty. A palm-sized kitten sat on the woman's shoulder, adding a touch of gentleness to the woman. Everyone's eyes followed closely on the woman, unable to move away. Half an hour I passed. The woman's pink lips curved slightly as she looked up at the main stage. Her tone was flat and her expression was indifferent. She was not the least bit excited about passing 10 assessments in half an hour. The three masters' jaws dropped to the ground as they rubbed their eyes in disbelief. And the masters, their figures flashed and went straight into the heaven pagoda to check if there was any loophole that allowed Yi Qing Luo to cheat. But after going around the pagoda, they did not find any problems. The three masters discussed with the 4 masters who were guarding the square and the heaven pagoda. These 4 masters were the masters of justice. They knew everything that was going on in the pagoda like the back of their hands. The 4 of them were extremely certain that Yi Qing Luo had used her own ability to pass the 10 assessments in one go, without any form of cheating. The time it took to brew a cup of tea had passed. The 3 main examiners returned to the main stage stiffly and announced, "Congratulations to 7th Miss Yi Qing Luo for passing the complicated 10 rounds of assessment in less than half an hour. She has been specially approved to become an official student of the Heavenly Academy." My disciple is ruined? Old man Guiyu's smile froze on his face. He opened his mouth wide and pointed at Yi Qing Luo. "My disciple, can't you give me some face?" His face fell and he covered his face. "My disciple. It's rare for me to accept a disciple." The 3 sovereign god teachers, who had been frozen stiff, were already rooted to the spot. There was no expression on their faces at all. Yi Qing Luo walked slowly towards the main stage, but her sight was fixated on Yi Qing Ling. That icy cold gaze was like a poisonous snake, wrapping around Yi Qing Ling's neck. Yi Qing Ling felt a chill down her spine and subconsciously tightened her grip on the long sword in her hand. Just when Yi Qing Ling was on tenterhooks, she saw Yi Qing Luo walking straight towards old man Guiyu. "Senior, I have already been apprenticed to the master. I cannot betray the master and be apprenticed to you. If Senior does not mind, please accept my younger brother Xiao Yu as your disciple. Although she did not know much about old man Guiyu, but she knew that he was definitely a person with a strong influence. Chapter 112. Old man Guiyu frowned and stroked his mustache. Who is it? Who is it? Who dares to snatch my disciple from me? Those who knew old man Guiyu's identity stared at her fiercely after hearing Yi Qingling's rejection. They couldn't believe their ears. Someone actually refused to be old man Guiyu's disciple. How many people wanted to be old man Guiyu's disciple? But old man Guiyu's temperament was eccentric and temperamental. Even the director couldn't control him and refused to accept him as a disciple. Yi Qing Luo actually gave up such a good opportunity? One by one, they were guessing who Yi Qing Luo's master was to make her reject old man Guiyu and not betray her master. Yi Qing Luo only raised her eyes and glanced at Diamo Xian's direction before immediately withdrawing her gaze. She didn't say a word, but this action was like a stone falling into the calm water, setting off a huge wave. Seventh Mrs. Master is actually the Overlord? No wonder. The elusive Overlord would appear here. He even specially brought the glower flame fan for 7th Miss. Damn. With the Overlord as her master, if it was me, I would not betray the master either. As long as she was involved with Diamo Xian, all the impossible became possible. Just like Yi Qing Luo, who had been useless for more than 10 years, suddenly became so powerful. Just like Yi Qing Luo, who could pass the most complicated 10 assessment. Everything was so natural. Damn, damn, damn. Overlord boy. You actually beat me to it. Old man Guiyu blew his beard angrily. Overlord boy? Sounds of people sucking in cold breaths could be heard from all around. This, perhaps only old man Guiyu dared to call Diamo Xian like this? The extremely lazy man slowly straightened his body. His long and narrow eyes squinted. His slender fingers seemed to be unconsciously playing with the ring between his fingers. The curve of his rosy lips faintly revealed a bit of evil. Just a glance and old man Guiyu, who was still rolling up his sleeves in indignation, instantly lost all his arrogance. He caressed his white robe and snorted a cold breath. Fine. I won't accept this girl, I won't. I will accept this lass's younger brother as my disciple. When she sees me, she will still have to call me teacher. After that, old man Guiyu rubbed his nose and looked at Yi Qing Luo unwillingly. Little girl, just you wait, when I defeat the Overlord, I will snatch you back. Yi Qing Luo's mouth twitched. Old man Guiyu's obsession with taking her as his disciple was too deep. Little disciple, come over. Diamo Xian suddenly raised his hand and beckoned towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Little disciple? What the hell? This time round, Yi Qing Luo's eyes also twitched. She braced herself and resigned herself to fate as she walked over, fearing that Diamo Xian would put on another, if you don't come over, then go over drama. Flipping over onto the main stage, Yi Qing Luo stood in front of Diamo Xian. Diamo Xian stretched out his hand and patted his thighs. Little disciple, sit here. The way the two of them acted, as if there was no one else around, made the jaws of the surrounding people drop to the ground. Previously they had guessed that Diamo Xian was Yi Qing Luo's master. Now that Diamo Xian had called her little disciple in public, didn't that mean that he had admitted it? But the atmosphere between them was really not like that of a master and disciple. On the contrary, it was like a pair of lovers throwing a tantrum. This thought made everyone present shake off their goosebumps. Not only the crowd had goosebumps, even Yi Qing Luo had goosebumps all over her body. Sit over there? Sit in his arms? Chapter 113. Yi Qing Luo turned her head stiffly, pretending not to see Diamo Xian, and looked directly at the Three Springs sect. When her line of sight was fixed on Yi Qing Ling, her gaze became awe-inspiring. Since I've passed the admission assessment, then I will now challenge the students who have passed the ability assessment. That's right. The purpose of her participation in the entrance examination was to defeat Yi Qing Ling and destroy the evil sword that had caused serious injury to her brother. It was not for the sake of squabbling with Dmo Xian. Yi Qing Ling subconsciously shrank behind Yi Qing Luo, frightened by the look in her eyes. He gripped the demonic sword in his hand tightly, as if this was the only way he could feel at ease. You have the right to refuse, don't accept her challenge. Yi Qing Qian lowered her voice and said quietly. Yi Qing Ling's breathing quickened as she nodded stiffly. The two sisters were discussing when they saw Yi Qing Luo condensed her profound qi and spread her voice. As everyone knows, the Heavenly Academy's recruitment of new students is extremely rigorous and strict. It also upholds the principle of fairness and openness, resolutely protecting the fairness of all students' assessment. As she spoke, Yi Qing Luo's gaze had already shifted to the main stage and the three masters. I would like to report that the fourth Miss of the Three Springs sect, Yi Qing Ling, in order to pass the ability assessment, did not hesitate to borrow the power of the dark forces to obtain the qualification to pass. May the masters investigate this. When Yi Qing Luo said that, it shocked everyone present. Everyone's eyes were instantly focused on the Three Springs sect's area. Dark forces? The righteous Three Springs sect was actually involved with the dark forces that were despised by the world? He had actually fallen to the point where he needed to borrow the power of the dark forces to pass the ability assessment? Everyone's gazes changed from the initial admiration to disdain and mockery. Yi Qing Qian's expression instantly darkened. She had never expected that Yi Qing Luo would disregard the Three Springs sect's reputation and expose Yi Qing Ling in public. And because Yi Qing Ling had been pressured by Yi Qing Luo's gaze several times, her heart was palpitating with fear and trepidation. The only way she could feel at ease was to hold on to that long sword. Under the watchful eyes of the public, Yi Qing Ling naturally had no way to hide the evil sword, otherwise it would look like she had a guilty conscience. At this moment, Yi Qing Qian finally understood why Yi Qing Luo hadn't reported them right from the start. Instead, he purposely used an hour to pass the entrance exam to stun them, occasionally glancing at them from the corner of his eyes. It was to arouse the fear and dread in Yi Qing Ling's heart. In this way, he would be caught red-handed. In the depths of Yi Qing Qian's beautiful eyes, there was a look of deep thought. Her seventh sister actually had such a terrifying shrewdness. You are slandering me. Yi Qing Ling blushed under everyone's stares and stood up in anger. This sword is borrowed by my eldest sister from her master, it's naturally different from ordinary swords. The devouring flame fan in your hand was also given to you by His Majesty. It is also different from ordinary fans. Yi Qing Ling was smart for once. Don't tell me that you're using this glower flame fan to take the entrance exam and I have to say that you're borrowing the power of the dark forces? What he said seemed to make sense. Moreover, that sword was borrowed from the head of Shijing sect, so it was natural for Yi Qing Ling to improve her strength. Seventh Miss Yi, just as fourth Miss Yi said, do you have any evidence to prove that she had used something from the dark forces? The master carefully asked Yi Qing Luo while looking at Dmo Xian's expression. Chapter 114. This challenge, Yi Qing Ling could neither accept nor reject it. If she rejected it, it would be a tacit admission that her long sword belonged to the dark forces and it would implicate the Shijing sect's head. If she accepted the challenge, it would be fine if she defeated Yi Qing Luo. But if she lost, wouldn't that expose the evil sword and the dark forces item? Let everyone know that Three Springs sect colluded with the dark forces. Three Springs sect would be completely destroyed. Did Yi Qing Luo really want to destroy Three Springs sect? Why? Is fourth sister afraid? Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes raised slightly as a playful smile hung on the corner of her mouth. Yi Qing Ling was so angry that her whole body trembled and was about to open her mouth when her sister pinched the flesh on her arm. She endured and ignored Yi Qing Luo's provocation. Even if fourth sister doesn't dare to accept the challenge, I think the Master of Justice will do a comprehensive check on the profound een item in fourth sister's hand. Yiqing Luo sighed faintly and murmured casually. But this murmur was clearly transmitted to Yiqing Ling's ears, even though it was a long distance away. Immediately, Yiqing Luo raised her head and her eyes were full of ridicule. Forget it, since fourth sister is still so afraid of me even with the help of the divine item, I have nothing to say. Yiqing Luo's words made everyone present look at Yiqing Ling with even more ridicule and disdain. Even with the sword borrowed from the Shijing sect's head, she didn't dare to accept the challenge of a useless sister for more than 10 years. Everyone began to question whether Yiqing Ling's sword was a profound een item, and they all threatened to ask the Master of Justice to thoroughly investigate Yiqing Ling's weapon. When everyone looked at Yiqing Luo, their faces were full of worship and surprise, and some of their eyes were full of reverence. In this strange world where the strong were respected, strength was respected. This was the benefit of strength. Even if you used to be a waste that was reviled by others. But once you had enough strength to make others fearful, those black spots would be completely erased. Who said I'm afraid of you? Alright, let's do it. Yiqing Ling had always been thin-skinned, and had always been flattered by others. At this time, under Yiqing Luo's words, everyone looked at her with such disdain and ridicule. Her fragile heart couldn't take it anymore. She immediately stood up and pointed her long sword at Yiqing Luo. Seventh sister, I'm just trying to save your face, to save the Overlord's face. That's why I'm tolerating you again and again, but you insist on being so overbearing. Fourth sister won't be courteous. Yiqing Jian's face stiffened and the hand that was holding onto Yiqing Ling slipped down without a trace. Damn idiot! Yiqing Qian's heart was boiling with anger as she started to develop a sense of disgust towards this twin sister of hers. But since Yiqing Ling had already accepted the challenge, there was no room for retreat now. She had to suppress the anger in her heart, put on a gentle and generous smile, and said gently, Seventh sister, we are sisters. Harmony brings wealth. Sisters? Earlier when fourth sister injured Xiao Yu till he fainted, why didn't you think that he was also your eighth brother? Yiqing Luo snorted coldly. Yiqing Jian was deflated and her face changed slightly. Ling has never understood propriety. Regarding eighth brother's matter, eldest sister is here to apologize to you. How much is your apology worth? Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes disdainfully. Now I'll kill you and then apologize to you, alright? Chapter 115. That's enough. A low voice came from the other side of the audition stage. Ling Fenghua stood up and frowned in displeasure. What's with all this noise? If seventh miss wants to challenge, just do it. Your Highness. Yiqing Qian pursed her pink lips. The little girl immediately hooked onto Ling Fenghua's arm. Her voice became more and more coquettish. The challenge is a small matter, I'm afraid. I'm afraid seventh sister will treat Ling I know the rules of the Heavenly Academy. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes and directly interrupted Yiqing Qian's words. A competition is just a competition. Stop where it's appropriate and there won't be any deaths. After all, fourth sister still left little Yu with his last breath, isn't it? Yiqing Ling's face turned pale with fright. A chill ran down her spine, and she began to regret her impulsive decision to accept Yiqing Luo's challenge. Yiqing Luo did not hide her purpose at all. She wanted to tell everyone present that she, Yiqing Luo, was no longer the same as before. Now, she was going to cast her own glory. Who dared to bully her people? They would be hunted down to the heavens and the earth. Don't be so long-winded. Hurry up and challenge if you want to. I still want to study that sword. Old man Guiyu impatiently urged. He was originally a restless person, listening to the two people chattering here. His face was already full of impatience. Things that can be solved with fists, don't waste time talking and waste time. Yiqing Luo looked at Yiqing Ling mockingly, snorted lightly and immediately walked towards the profound pagoda. Yiqing Ling had no way out at this time, especially when she heard that old man Guiyu wanted to study this sword. her heart was even more uneasy. She was so scared that she cowered behind Yi Qing Luo. Fourth Miss, wait. Suddenly, the clear and melodious voice that hadn't sounded for a long time suddenly sounded out from the main stage. Yi Qing Ling stopped in her tracks, her eyes widened and turned her head in ecstasy. Was the Overlord calling her? The Overlord actually took the initiative to call her. Yi Qing Ling blushed and revealed a bashful look. Overlord. Mo Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. He lazily stretched out his slender fingers and stroked his rosy lips. This action made Yi Qing Ling's blood tank empty. Her face flushed red and she almost fainted. Since it's a competition, there's no need to give me face, just go all out. Mo Xian's thin lips curved upwards. This sentence was like a thunderclap. His HP bar emptied and his face flushed red were all replaced by the sound of thunder. Yi Qing Luo burst out laughing as the gaze which she shot towards Mo Xian was filled with smiles. Mo Xian was simply like a godly knife. At this moment, Yi Qing Ling had suffered a crushing defeat in the competition, and there was no way she could find an excuse to say that she had been lenient on account of the Overlord. Instead, she had to give it her all. Otherwise, it would be disrespecting Di Zun. Mo Xian had sealed Yi Qing Ling's last route of retreat. Old Man Gui Yu shouted, "Open the challenge space. I want to watch the battle." The four masters of justice leaped up and circled around the heavenly pagoda. At the same time, a dazzling light shot out from their palms. After the brilliance dissipated, Yi Qing Luo and Yi Qing Ling had already disappeared from the public square. Immediately after that, the purple-robed nobleman on the main audition stage disappeared. The Overlord had followed them to the heavenly pagoda to watch Yi Qing Luo's competition. Everyone's heart tightened as they took out their profound stones and chose to challenge Yi Qing Luo. Chapter 116. The space of the challenge ring was slightly different from the space of the ability assessment. Both Yi Qing Luo and Yi Qing Ling could hear the voices of the audience, and they could also talk to the audience. The two of them stood on the stage as Yi Qing Luo waved her feather fan with a leisurely look. On the contrary, Yi Qing Ling's little face was pale, her eyes were filled with unwillingness and fear. The surrounding noise made Yi Qing Ling's delicate body tremble. There were at least 100 people in the audience space. Mo Xian sat at the head of the table with Old Man Gui Yu who came to watch the fun. The audience behind the two were all famous people. Yi Qing Ling was even more frightened. She was afraid that these people would see that there was something wrong with the long sword in her hand. Her profound jade heart had long been destroyed and now she could only rely on the power of the evil sword to fight. If Yi Qing Luo could find out, she was afraid that other people would also find out this secret. Fourth sister, don't worry, just treat it as an ordinary competition, it's okay even if you lose. Yi Qing Qian said softly under the ring. This sentence also gave Yi Qing Ling a dose of tranquilizer. Seventh sister, you just recently learned the way to cultivate profound qi from the Overlord, but you are after all a beginner, everything should have a backup plan. Yi Qing Ling's eyes were full of anger as she spoke. She waved her long sword, and a burst of profound qi like fire rushed out. I need a backup plan? Yi Qing Luo sneered and opened her feather fan, condensing profound qi on it, and gently waved it. Countless strong winds instantly lingered on the feather fan. It easily swung away the oncoming fire blade. Immediately, Yi Qing Luo leaped up. The feather fan rotated extremely fast at her fingertips. The lingering profound qi also wantonly flowed like a sharp blade. That illusory technique left only an afterimage of the feather fan. It was impossible for the naked eye to catch. By the time Yi Qing Ling sensed the oncoming profound qi, it was already too late to avoid. The cold and treacherous atmosphere hit her in the face. Avoided! Fourth Miss Ye's profound level is so profound. If it was me just now, I would never be able to avoid that sword. Seventh Miss Ye's profound level seems to be only at the yellow profound realm and is still unstable. How did she withstand that sword? Is it the devouring flame fan that Di Zun gave you? The discussions below the stage didn't affect Yi Qing Luo at all. She flipped her hand and a red light flashed, bringing with it an eerie chill as it directly attacked Yi Qing Ling's face. Just as Yi Qing Ling's complexion turned deathly pale, her heart trembling in fear and unable to dodge, the long sword in her hand suddenly had its own consciousness, controlling Yi Qing Ling's body. Yi Qing Ling's body floated in the air and quickly moved backward. However, that red feather fan still brushed past Yi Qing Ling's shoulder. Scarlet's sleeve was instantly sliced open, revealing half of her fair shoulder. Soon, fresh blood gushed out and covered his snow-white shoulder. Yi Qing Ling didn't seem to be aware of the pain as she moved her sword and burst out with a frightening sword ray. In the blink of an eye, a huge sword made of sword light appeared on the horizon. The fourth miss of the Yi clan can actually use sword chi to create a virtual sword? In the audience area, several elders suddenly stood up with a look of shock. There were countless profound practitioners in the world, and they used all kinds of weapons. Among them, the saber and the sword were the most popular. Every weapon had its own unique set of technique. Just like swordsmanship, no matter how high the profound level was, no matter how strong the ability, if the swordsmanship had not reached the level of the sword saint, it would be impossible to create a huge virtual sword with sword chi. Yi Qing Ling had actually comprehended the profound meaning of swordsmanship. The audience area was filled with gasps one after another. Powerful. Simply too powerful. Chapter 117. Yi Qing Ling's sharp gaze was full of ruthlessness. Go! The huge sword rotated in midair and followed Yi Qing Ling's control. It came crashing down towards Yi Qing Luo. Profound swordsmanship, Yi Qing Luo had to raise her spirit to deal with it. Her feet flashed and her figure had quickly retreated. As if it was a precise calculation, Yi Qing Luo's body coincidentally bypassed the trajectory of the huge sword. Ye's seventh miss avoided the profound swordsmanship. What kind of heaven-defying geniuses are these Ye's family? To be able to avoid the huge sword formed by the sword chi so well, this is even more amazing than avoiding the sword chi from afar. I'm afraid the strength of the Ye's seventh miss is far more than this. I really don't understand what the Ye's seventh miss is thinking. She is obviously at a disadvantage, but it looks like she is playing with the Ye's fourth Mississippi. Look, the Ye's fourth miss's movements seem a bit stiff. In the audience area, someone with sharp eyes discovered that Yi Qing Ling's every move was like a puppet being pulled by strings. As soon as the words were spoken, just as the crowd was about to take a closer look, a powerful pressure burst out from the ring. A powerful wave of chi struck the arena. For a moment it confused everyone's vision. The ground of the ring shook violently and cracked directly, gravel splashed. The profound Yin sword in Yi Qing Ling's hand made a clanging sound. Since you dare to cheat with evil things, you should be prepared to be found out. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes contemptuously. It could be seen that Yi Qing Ling's action was because the words of the audience made her flustered and afraid. If she was really found out, she would really become the joke of the entire Nirvana realm. Yi Qing Ling's heart was anxious and wanted to end this battle as soon as possible. The profound Yin Qi was released more intensely. The billowing airwave shrouded the entire ring in a layer of brilliance. The audience area looked at the ring, but there was no way to see clearly. Little slut, if you want to destroy me, then I will destroy you first. Yi Qing Ling raised her sword and slashed. Deliberately lowering her voice, it couldn't hide the hostility and ruthlessness in her tone. Want to destroy me? It also depends on whether you're qualified. Yi Qing Luo's bewitching lips curled into a smile as the feather fan on her fingertips suddenly opened up and a bewitching red glow lingered around the feather fan. Chi-chi. Yi Qing Luo's lips moved slightly as she spat out two words. Before Yi Qing Ling could regain her senses, she suddenly saw a white figure flashing past her eyes amidst the waves of air in front of her. He couldn't see what that white thing was. Suddenly, she felt her shoulder lighten, as if something had landed on it. The sharp teeth pierced into Yi Qingling's shoulder. A stinging pain suddenly struck Yi Qingling from head to toe. Ah! With a scream, Yi Qingling's eyes widened and she reached out to grab her shoulder. But what he touched was a ball of furry stuff. That thing, without any explanation, gave her another wave of piercing pain, and directly bit her finger. Immediately following that little white fur ball turned into a white shadow and returned back to Yi Qingluo's shoulder. His little claws scratched his little head. The pink little tongue licked his mouth, seemingly satisfied with the taste of blood. "Little slut, you, how dare you let this thing bite me?" Yi Qingling cursed angrily as she covered her finger, but she couldn't stop the blood from flowing onto the long sword. Yi Qingluo saw with her own eyes that the blood from Yi Qingling's finger seeped into the long sword. Chapter 118. Mysterious objects were evil objects in the first place. What it absorbed was the human essence. Especially, it loved to suck human blood. Once the profound object was stained with human blood, the profound qi would riot. Yi Qingluo had this idea in mind. Not to mention Yi Qingling, whose jade heart had been destroyed, even if she still had profound qi, she would not be able to control the sword's rampage. "You are breaking the rules." Yi Qingling had been warned by Yi Qingqian not to let her own blood flow on the sword. At this moment, seeing the blood in her hand being absorbed by the evil sword in a split second, she panicked. Yi Qingluo touched Qi on her shoulder. "Breaking the rules? This is my war pet, why can't I use it to assist in the battle?" The Heavenly Academy's assessment, indeed, did not explicitly state that one was not allowed to use a war pet. After all, to be able to subdue a war pet, that was also the ability of a cultivator. To be able to coordinate with a war pet, that was also the ability of a cultivator. The group of people below the stage widened their eyes and stared at the white dot on Yi Qingluo's shoulder. Their jaws almost dropped to the ground. War pet? Was there a war pet that looked like that? At most, this was just a little pet beast that was acting cute. Who would have thought that the fierce 7th Mrs. War Pet was so, cute? You. Yi Qingluo, you will regret this, you will regret this. Yi Qingling's wrist had begun to tremble. Obviously, she could no longer control the evil sword's rampage. Countless profound qi was running around in the evil sword. The evil sword was mainly based on the qi. After absorbing human blood, especially the blood of women, the blade of the sword could not help but tremble. It wanted to absorb more blood, it wanted to absorb more power. With a loud bang, the profound qi running around the evil sword exploded. The entire stage was split into several pieces, and there was no place to stand. A powerful and majestic force shrouded the entire stage. Even the audience below the stage could feel this terrifying aura. "This is not profound qi, what's going on? Why is there a cold qi running around the 4th Mrs. body?" Yes, cold qi. That kind of coldness seemed to come from hell. It was bone-piercing cold, and it was mixed with a dark energy. "Look, there's something wrong with 4th Miss Yi. She's completely being controlled by that sword. Yes. I was wondering why 4th Miss Yi's swordsmanship was so strange. It seems like it was not my illusion." In the audience below the stage, there was no lack of Earth Profound Realm experts. Even the teachers of the Academy came in one after another after hearing the discussion outside. These people could naturally tell that something was wrong with Yi Qingling. Especially now that the evil sword was rampaging, it was unable to conceal its own mysterious qi. "It's indeed an item from the dark forces." Old man Guiyu's clear voice was heard, instantly suppressing the other people who were discussing. He glanced sideways at the few masters standing behind him and said in a cold voice, "Which bastard reviewed the weapon for the ability assessment? My disciple was destroyed by this evil sword." A few masters lowered their heads, intimidated by old man Guiyu's majesty. All of them felt uneasy in their hearts. After all, the other party was the 4th Miss of the Yi clan. Her strength and status were all there for all to see. The masters naturally did not expect that the Yi family would have dealings with the dark forces. They did not check Yi Qingling much and let her go. Old man Gui Yu, then, shall we forcefully disqualify fourth Miss Yi and stop the competition? Behind him, the headmaster gave his opinion cautiously. Chapter 119. Everyone felt a chill down their spines. So, the Overlord is treating this competition as a game? They were shocked to the core by what they saw. Especially now, the long sword in Yi Qingling's hand was completely in a berserk state. The profound Yin Qi was pouring out unstoppably. Could it be that the Overlord was not worried about his disciple? But if the profound Yin Qi goes out of control, I'm afraid it will hurt the Ye's seventh miss. The master said worriedly. Dmo Xian raised his eyebrows slightly. His peach blossom eyes seemed to have fallen into a pool of spring water. It doesn't matter, it's just a profound Yin sword, a Luo can handle it. A light voice overflowed from Dmo Xian's thin lips. What's more, if she can't beat it, I'll do it myself. Everyone. The Overlord was coming? Then the Ye's fourth miss still had a way out? That's right. The girl I fancy. It's just a profound Yin sword, what's there that she can't handle? What's more, if she can't handle it, there's still me. Old man Gui Yu also clicked his tongue. An expert was indeed an expert. The mysterious Yin sword, which had such a strong Yin Qi, was like an ordinary sword in their mouth. Was the Ye's seventh miss really that powerful? With just the yellow mystic realm, he could deal with the sword of profound Yin? On the stage, Yi Qingling and Yi Qingluo stood in the air. Yi Qingling's entire body was surrounded by a layer of treacherous Yin Qi. Her beautiful hair was blown by the Yin Qi, standing upright behind her back while making threatening gestures. Her dark red long dress had long turned black. Waves of powerful air billowed and surged. And Yi Qingluo crossed her arms in front of her chest. Her toes landed on the edge of the stage. Her eyebrows were full of ridicule, her posture leisurely, as if waiting for Yi Qingling to accept the devouring of the evil sword. When the crowd saw this scene, they were completely convinced of Yi Qingluo. Shouldn't she take this opportunity to take down the Ye's fourth miss? When the Ye's fourth miss completely accepts the attachment of the evil sword, it will be very difficult to deal with. Is the Ye's seventh miss waiting for the Ye's fourth miss to accept the attachment of the evil sword? She's so confident to deal with the profound Yin sword? I suddenly feel that the Ye's seventh miss is so handsome. I'm falling in love with her. For a moment, the audience below the arena was in an uproar. And at this moment, Yi Qingling, who was on the stage, had been completely possessed by the evil sword. Her entire body had been devoured by the evil sword. Her eyes were lifeless and her body was as stiff as a sword. Even when he moved, he was floating. You will regret this. You will regret this. That hoarse voice kept repeating this sentence. At this moment, Yi Qingling could only say this sentence. She had lost all sense of self, and had completely turned into a sword. The game has begun. Yi Qingluo's lips curled into a mysterious smile, but the arc revealed a hint of coldness. What she wanted was for Yi Qingling to expose the fact that she had used the profound Yin sword in front of everyone. After all, seeing was believing. She did not have extra time to wait for the Heavenly Academy to investigate this matter thoroughly. However, what was unexpected was that the evil sword's devouring ability was so strong. A single drop of blood was enough to make it go crazy and take over its owner's body. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before Yi Qingling would be completely devoured by the evil sword. Devoured? She would not let Yi Qingling die so easily. Yi Qingluo sneered and rotated the feather fan at her fingertip. The coquettish red light merged with the profound qi and rolled up thousands of wind blades, heading straight for Yi Qingling. Chapter 120. Game. It was indeed a game. To Yi Qingluo, this was a game of cat and mouse. The taste would definitely be better if the mouse was fattened up before eating. Everyone saw that Yi Qingluo was playing with Yi Qingling like a mouse. Yi Qingling, who was controlled by the evil sword, constantly released sword chi and sword move. The entire stage was stirred up by the surging profound yin chi. But every time it was about to hit Yi Qing Luo, the next second, Yi Qing Luo's figure disappeared. The next second, Yi Qing Luo appeared behind Yi Qing Ling. There would always be something left on Yi Qing Ling. Yi Qing Ling, who was drenched in blood, flowed to her right arm and was sucked dry by the evil sword. After drinking blood, the evil sword's evil qi became more turbulent. It completely treated Yi Qing Ling as its own food, and the speed of absorption had increased by a lot. Not long after, Yi Qing Ling's face had become frighteningly pale. Even her plump red lips had become pale and shriveled, especially horrifying. About half a cup of tea's time, Yi Qing Luo stopped playing. She raised her eyebrows and revealed a righteous expression. "Fourth sister, I promised you that I will let you live, I will not go back on my words." If the evil sword drank more of Yi Qing Ling's blood, Yi Qing Ling's body would probably be devoured by the evil sword. "I am tired after playing for so long, this game should be over." The sneer in her eyes gradually deepened as her cold voice sounded leisurely. The woman in red had a very shallow sneer on her lips. Her pair of charming eyes were suffused with a cold glint. The feather fan in her hand was constantly rotating at a high speed on her fair fingertip. The coquettish red light blended with the profound chi. Rolling up a fire dragon, it covered the sky and wrapped around Yi Qing Ling. Yi Qing Ling didn't feel any pain at all. Under the evil sword's control, her whole body directly rushed towards the fire dragon. The evil sword slashed down horizontally, gathering a scalp-numbing yin chi. That sword chi split the fire dragon that Yi Qing Luo had condensed. Her whole body was like an arrow released from the bow, rushing straight over. That momentum was fierce and fast. The spectators below the stage kept on screaming as they shouted for Yi Qing Luo to be careful. But Yi Qing Luo stood on the spot with a calm expression, allowing the evil sword to get closer. That disdainful cold arrogance was not the least bit inferior to Dmo Xian. The evil sword approached the front. Yi Qing Luo suddenly raised her feather fan and coincidentally pinched onto the sword's body. The red light moved and immediately wrapped around the evil sword. Under the control of the demonic sword, Yi Qing Ling tried to withdraw her arm. However, the feather fan was like a suction cup, sucking the sword so tightly that it couldn't move at all. "Ah! Ah!" Yi Qing Ling was anxious, her mouth issued a hoarse roar, very much like the howl of a wild beast. The expression on his face was twisted and ferocious. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed as her 5 fingers which were holding onto the feather fan suddenly retracted. The feather fan closed. With a "kacha" sound, the evil sword actually broke into pieces when the feather fan closed up. Almost in an instant, the yin chi in the arena quickly disappeared. The evil sword fell on the broken arena and lost all its brilliance, like half a piece of rusty iron. And Yi Qing Ling, who was suspended high in the air, at the same time, fell straight down and fell hard on the arena. "Old man, is there any way to make the profound qi absorbed by the profound yin sword return to Yi Qing Ling?" Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes and asked in her heart. Old man Tsang was surprised. "You want to save her?" Chapter 121. "I say, when did you become so kind? So this is what you're planning, ha 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 ha." Old man Tsang clicked his tongue. "While the profound yin sword still has some yin qi, use the profound phoenix ring to extract Yi Qing Ling's essence and transfer it into her body." Yi Qing Luo did as instructed. When a part of the essence returned to Yi Qing Ling's body, she slowly woke up. The intense pain in her body caused her to scream out loud. While she was crying out in pain, her vision turned and fell onto Yi Qing Luo. That pale white face instantly looked as though she had seen a ghost. You. Her voice was hoarse, and every word she uttered felt like a blade was cutting her throat. She really couldn't say anything. Yi Qing Ling's chest rose and fell, her eyes were filled with horror. She had no memory of being controlled by the evil sword, but now that she was lying on the ground, unable to move, Yi Qing Ling understood. The evil sword was defeated. She was defeated. It was a complete and utter defeat. How could it be? How could it be? How could Yi Qing Luo deal with the profound Yin sword? Didn't eldest sister say that no one in the world could defeat this dark force's weapon? Fourth sister, this young matriarch is a person who keeps her promises. I said I will leave you with your last breath. Naturally I will. Yi Qing Luo smiled coldly. Her half-squinted eyes were filled with a bone-chilling coldness. No need to thank this young matriarch. Thank my ass. I can't wait to tear you into pieces. Yi Qing Ling stared at Yi Qing Luo fiercely. This young matriarch has never liked to stir up trouble, but I am not afraid of trouble. Yi Qing Luo flipped the glower flame fan in her hand. A few wind blades condensed from profound qi flew directly towards Yi Qing Ling. This is what this young matriarch wants for little you. Swoosh swoosh, a few more wind blades flew straight at her. Ah, Yi Qing Luo. Slut! Yi Qing Ling's throat almost broke from the heart-wrenching scream, until her voice became softer and softer, leaving only light breathing sounds. Yi Qing Luo sneered and looked at Old Man Guiyu. Old Man Guiyu's face had turned into a chrysanthemum, especially after seeing Yi Qing Luo's methods. He liked her even more. With a wave of his hand, he hurriedly announced, "Student Yi Qing Luo challenges Yi Qing Ling. Yi Qing Luo wins." Applause could be heard from the crowd. The crowd stared at the person lying in a pool of blood on the stage and sucked in a breath of cold air. After the duel ended, the space in the arena disappeared. Everyone returned to the square. At this moment, there were already countless people outside waiting for the result. There were also countless students who had come out of the Upper Xian Pagoda, and when they heard the news, they were all waiting for the result. When the first wave of people was teleported out, the originally quiet square instantly became lively. He saw Yi Qing Ling lying in a pool of blood. Her crimson dress had long been stained dry by the blood. Only then did everyone realize that the skin on her forelimbs had actually been cut open. It was obvious that his meridians had been cut. Without tendons and meridians, one would be a cripple, a complete and utter cripple. Beside Yi Qing Ling was the evil sword that was broken into two pieces. And Yi Qing Luo stood indifferently at the side, looking coldly at Yi Qing Ling, expressionless. This is too ruthless, to actually cut her own sister's tendons. Isn't this deliberately to cripple the fourth miss of the Yi clan? Offend anyone but the seventh miss of the Yi clan, this method is really scary. Chapter 122. Fourth Miss Yi used an item from the Dark Forces as a weapon in an attempt to bluff her way through. She deserved it. Those who had seen the whole situation in the competition space heard these comments and immediately defended Yi Qing Luo. Seventh Miss Yi is ruthless. Why didn't you think about how eighth young Master Yi was carried out of the square? Fourth Miss Yi is such a scum, she deserves to be abused. For a moment, the dead silent square began to clamor again. Yi Qing Qian's cheeks flushed with anger as she listened to the comments around her. She couldn't let the crowd suspect her of being an item from the Dark Forces. Thinking of this, Yi Qing Qian's eyes changed and suddenly ran towards Yi Qing Ling's direction. The expression on her face was replaced with heartache and worry. Ling, why are you so silly? How dare you ask for something from the Dark Forces? I really thought this was a sword lent to you by my master. You even lied to eldest sister. If I knew this was an item from the Dark Forces, I would definitely not allow you to use it. Do you know that an evil thing is an evil thing after all? How could you be so muddle-headed? Yi Qing Qian's voice was full of reproach as she wiped her tears with heartache. After the show, she was worried that Yi Qing Ling would expose her and hurriedly called for the Three Springs Sex people to carry Yi Qing Ling away. Yi Qing Luo wasn't interested in listening to these people's nonsense anymore. She kept her feather fan and looked at Dmo Xian. Let's go. Just as her voice fell, the man who was leaning lazily on the soft chair instantly stood beside Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo only saw a purple fluttering in front of her. That handsome and charming face was right in front of her. Are you taking me home, Aluo? The mellow voice was clear and melodious, with a hint of magnetism and laziness. Yiqing Luo's heart seemed to be scratched by something. She quickly lowered her eyes and hid the strange emotions in her heart, turned around and left. DMO Xian chuckled and followed closely behind. One purple and one red, they walked away together. That scene was so beautiful that one couldn't take their eyes off it. There was silence in the square. It wasn't until the two figures left that old man Guiyu suddenly regained his senses and shouted, "I haven't acknowledged my disciple yet, and you left just like that. Didn't you say that I would accept you as my disciple?" Old man Guiyu was very tired. In the past, many people had knelt down and begged him to take them in as disciples. Now that he finally wanted to take in a disciple, why was it so difficult? Yiqing Luo went straight to Pristine Elixir Medicine Hall and inquired about the Mu brothers before bringing her brother to the Mu family for treatment. "Come, let's go to the Mu family." Yiqing Luo didn't say another word as she brought DMO Xian towards the direction of the Mu family. DMO Xian slowly followed behind her. His long and narrow brows gazed deeply at the woman's side profile. Her face was filled with anxiety and her thin, shapely eyebrows were tightly knitted together. Her beautiful face was covered with a layer of loneliness and coldness. It was precisely this temperament that made her seem even more elegant and aloof from the world. DMO Xian's deep black eyes slowly narrowed. This woman. Every time he saw her, she would always amaze him. Why didn't you just kill her directly? DMO Xian's brows rose as he asked curiously. Earlier on the stage, Yiqing Luo had the chance to kill Yiqing Ling. Moreover, she was able to shirk the responsibility cleanly. However, at the last moment, she actually transferred Yiqing Ling's essence back into Yiqing Ling's body. She saved Yiqing Ling's life. Chapter 123. Kill her. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a sneer. Don't you feel that letting her live is worse than letting her die? DMO Xian couldn't help but burst out laughing. Indeed, to the current Yiqing Ling, living was more unbearable than death. The news of Yiqing Ling using the Dark Forces item had probably spread throughout the entire Three Springs city. It wouldn't take long for the news to spread throughout the West Continent and even the entire Nirvana realm. Her reputation was ruined, her profound jade heart broken, her meridians broken. There was no way to seek death while living in pain. This was the true meaning of living a life worse than death. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed. Although it was coquettish and beautiful, it was filled with a cold glint. Since she dared to hurt little you, then she must suffer 100 times the pain. She had never been a good person. It could even be said that she was a cold-hearted person. As long as it didn't involve her or threaten her existence, she wasn't interested in it at all. But once she was implicated and the people around her were hurt, she would never be lenient. Yiqing Luo's principle was very simple. Those who bullied her, humiliated her and hurt her, she would hunt them down to the ends of the earth. Protect her, and those who loved her, protect them to the end. This was her way of survival. Yiqing Luo restrained the cold glint in her eyes and restored her calmness. Yiqing Qian, better pray that nothing happens to little you, otherwise, her ending will be worse than Yiqing Ling. She turned her head and walked straight ahead. DMO Xian's brows overflowed with a smile, extremely lazy. He gazed at Yiqing Luo's back. The glint in his eyes flickered with a meaningful luster. Sure enough, this little thing was the same type of person as him. She was vengeful, ruthless, and eccentric. Unlike ordinary women, she did not conceal her true nature. This was the woman he was looking for. The smile on DMO Xian's lips became more and more enchanting and bewitching. Mu family. Yiqing Luo and DMO Xian had just arrived at the door when the servant came forward and took the initiative to invite them into the house. A maidservant came over and led them to the pharmacy. Outside the pharmacy, a few doctors dressed in long robes walked in and out. Their brows were tightly furrowed, and they could vaguely hear Mu Zifan's voice coming from inside the room. Yi Qing Luo's heart trembled as she swiftly pushed open the door and rushed into the room. "Seventh young mistress, you're here." Mu Zifei stood beside the bed, both hands holding a row of silver needles. "Miss!" Ziling cried her eyes out as she stayed by the bedside. Her pair of red and swollen eyes looked at Yi Qing Luo pitifully. "How is Xiao Yu?" Yi Qing Luo's brows creased as she looked at the young man on the bed. Yi Feng Yu's eyes were tightly shut as he lay on the bed. His blood-stained clothes had long since been stripped off and replaced with thick bandages. Above the bandage, there was still fresh blood seeping out. His slightly immature and handsome face was as pale as paper, without the slightest trace of blood. Yi Qing Luo's throat suddenly tightened, as though something was strangling her neck. It was so uncomfortable that he couldn't breathe. Her delicate body trembled as she slowly walked to the bedside. Her pair of charming eyes were filled with tears. The reason why Xiao Yu was seriously injured and lying here was all because of her. "Seventh young mistress, don't worry, eighth young master only has some superficial wounds. He will be fine after recuperating for a period of time." Mu Zifan comforted her in a gentle voice. His hand holding the silver needles deftly inserted the silver needles into Yi Feng Yu's acupuncture point. His movements were smooth and skillful. Yi Qing Luo choked and softly replied with a "hm." Her 5 fingers unconsciously curled up and clenched. Chapter 124. Don't worry, the dignified Alchemist Guild's young chief will personally treat Little Yu. Not long after, Little Yu will definitely be alive and kicking. DMO Xian's thin lips curved slightly as he stood behind Yi Qing Luo and held her tightly clenched fist. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips, the light in her eyes was cold. "I was just thinking that I should have cut off her limbs and castrated her in the jar. I will do it for you." DMO Xian lowered his head and rested it on Yi Qing Luo's shoulder. His 5 fingers forcefully inserted into Yi Qing Luo's 5 fingers and interlocked. The woman's petite body was tightly embraced by the man's broad chest. Yi Qing Luo was not used to it, her cheeks flushed and her breathing became rapid. She struggled and DMO Xian's arm tightened. There was a faint smile on his devilishly handsome face. This is... Mu Zifei's expression was somewhat strange. He glanced sideways at his brother and then looked at DMO Xian, trying to guess the relationship between him and Yi Qing Luo. Gorgeous purple robe, peerless style. You must be the Imperial Palace's lord, DMO Xian. Mu Zifan withdrew his hand and looked at DMO Xian with a gentle gaze as he nodded with a smile. However, when his gaze landed on their interlocked hands and the ring on their fingers, the light in his eyes dimmed a little. DMO Xian's narrow eyes narrowed slightly as he declared with his arms around Yi Qing Luo's slender waist and nodded indifferently. "Little Yu is indebted to young chief for his personal treatment. This lord will definitely thank you. A doctor is originally to save the world and help the people, no need for thank." Mu Zifan laughed lightly. "What's more, 7th Miss is my friend." The 2 men's 4 eyes met and seemed to set off a storm. Who asked you to do it?" Yi Qing Luo did not notice the undercurrent surging between the 2 men. She saw that the Mu brothers' line of sight were uniformly concentrated on her. Her cheeks were flushed red and hot as she lifted her feet and ruthlessly stepped on DMO Xian's instep. Damn it! What the hell was this man trying to do? It was one thing for him to grope her in private, but in front of so many people, he even put on an intimate appearance with her. She should be the one thanking Mu Zifan. Why did he have to thank Little Yu on his behalf? And he even had to thank him heavily? Damn it! What the hell? Lord Overlord, is there something wrong with your brain? Yi Qing Luo was flustered. Fortunately, Mu Zifan didn't delve too deeply into this issue. He turned around and continued to perform acupuncture on Yi Feng Yu. Mu Zifei felt the strange atmosphere in the room. He coughed dryly and changed the topic. 7th young lady, whose limbs did you say you were going to cut off just now? Could it be that you have avenged 8th young master? Yes. At the mention of Yi Qingling, Yi Qing Luo's struggle lessened and her eyes were covered with a layer of coldness. I broke her meridians. F***ck. Mu Zifei's mouth opened wide as he looked at Yi Qing Luo in disbelief, his fingers trembling nonstop. You actually severed her meridians? She's your fourth sister, right? So? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows and sneered. What I mean is, aren't you afraid, your father? Mu Zifei saw that she misunderstood his meaning and waved his hand repeatedly. Immediately he frowned worriedly. Your fourth sister in the Yi family is considered to be an upper-level cultivator. If you destroy her, I'm afraid your father will. As one of the four great families, the Mu family naturally had some understanding of the Three Springs sect. They were also very clear that Yi Tianquang was extremely disgusted with Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo destroyed a cultivator in the Yi family. How could Yi Tianquang let her off? Afraid? Since I dared to do it, there's nothing to be afraid of. Yi Qing Luo's eyes shot out a biting cold intent. Yi Tianquang would stand up for Yi Qingling? Chapter 125. Mu Zifei was completely convinced by Yi Qing Luo and wanted to prostrate himself before her. He gave a thumbs up and swallowed hard. Strong. Really strong. Who said women were inferior to men? This girl was so valiant that even he, as a man, was afraid of her. After Mu Zifan finished the acupuncture, he used profound qi to disinfect the silver needles and put them back into the acupuncture kit one by one. His movements were delicate and gentle, neither too fast nor too slow. At the same time, he spoke in a warm tone. Seventh young miss, in that case, you have already passed the Heavenly Academy's entrance examination? Yes, I have become an official student. Yi Qing Luo responded faintly, her eyes fixed on the bed. After seeing Yi Feng use acupuncture treatment, his face clearly had some color, and only then did he heave a sigh of relief. She patted the hands around her waist. This time round, Dmo Xian didn't insist and automatically released her. Yi Qing Luo got her freedom and immediately distanced herself from him. She quickly moved to Mu Zifan's side and stared fiercely at him. She immediately withdrew her gaze and took out 2 porcelain bottles from the profound phoenix ring and handed them to Mu Zifan. This bottle is for internal injuries and this bottle is for external injuries. You can use them together. Mu Zifan took the porcelain bottle, unscrewed the bottle and sniffed it. When the fragrance of the medicine entered his nose, his eyes suddenly lit up and he looked at Yi Qing Luo with some joy. Did you refine this? Yi Qing Luo just smiled and did not answer. But the meaning was also very obvious. Mu Zifan knew it in his heart and did not ask any more. After staying for another half an hour and confirming that her brother was indeed fine, Yi Qing Luo thanked the Mu brothers and left with Dmo Xian. It was still not suitable for him to move now. Moreover, staying in the Mu family could get the most timely care. After sending off Yi Qing Luo, Mu Zifan stared at her back. The curvature of his lips became more and more obvious. Big brother, don't look any more, she is not yours. Mu Zifei put his arm around his big brother's shoulder. He had finally taken a fancy to a woman, but did not expect that the Overlord had already taken the initiative. How could he fight with the Overlord over her? Seventh Miss is indeed a wonderful person. It would be good if we can get to know each other further. However, even if we aren't fated to get married, it's enough to be friends. Mu Zifan faintly smiled and restrained the tenderness hidden in the depths of his eyes. Her level of alchemy should be between an apothecary and an apothecary. Her talent in alchemy is extremely high. Giving her the Alchemy Union's token was the wisest decision. Suddenly, I want to try to snatch Miss Seventh from His Majesty. Mu Zifan patted him on the shoulder and shook his head with a smile. Then, he turned around and returned to the Mu family. Yi Qing Luo had just stepped into the Three Springs Sex Manor when Yi Changwei came up to her and blocked her way. Yi Changwei shrank his head and looked behind Yi Qing Luo. When he didn't see Dmo Xian's figure, his courage grew slightly. Seventh Miss, Madam invites you. Second wife, Madame Yuchi? Mu Zifei was right. This Madame Yuchi was prepared to seek revenge for her own daughter. Yiqing Luo sneered as she walked past Yi Chongwei and headed towards her abandoned courtyard. Seventh young lady. Seventh young lady. Yi Chongwei was anxious and hurriedly followed behind her. Madam has an urgent matter to discuss with you. Please come with me. His voice was filled with a bit of begging. There was no trace of the arrogance and domineering from the last time. Yo, Seventh Miss has climbed up to the Overlord and shone brilliantly in the assessment plaza. Are you so arrogant now? Have you ever put the Yi family in your eyes? A sharp voice came from the side. Chapter 126. Madame Yuchi was dressed elegantly, every step she took was full of momentum. You're staying in Three Springs sect, so you're one of them. Seventh Miss, you're the future matriarch of Three Springs sect, yet you're already hooking up with a man before you're even married. Aren't you afraid of being ridiculed by the world for your young age? Her words came to a halt, as if she felt that these words were inappropriate for a young lass to say. However, these words were obviously meant for Yiqing Luo to hear. Madame Yuchi had been in charge for several years and was originally from an aristocratic family, so her means were naturally brilliant. In just a few words, she had easily expressed her status in Three Springs sect. It was also a hint to Yiqing Luo that if she was still staying in Three Springs sect, she would have to listen to Second Madame's arrangements. She also took the opportunity to ridicule Yiqing Luo for her lack of self-restraint, actually hooking up with the Overlord without anyone knowing. Yiqing Luo sneered. Her guess was right. Madame Yuchi had really used Dmo Xian as a pretext. Thinking of the man whom she had chased to a dark corner, Yiqing Luo's emotions were extremely complicated. If she were to bring Dmo Xian back to Three Springs sect, her unmarried daughter's reputation would definitely be ruined. As for reputation, Yiqing Luo didn't care much about it. But she didn't want Yifeng Yu to be pointed at by others because of her reputation. So on the way back to Three Springs sect, she asked Dmo Xian to leave first and contact him if there's anything, and returned alone. After a few days of exhaustion, Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to waste time with Madame Yuchi's nonsense and completely ignored her. She walked towards the direction of the abandoned courtyard without any hesitation. Seventh Miss, do you really think that you can do whatever you want just because you're admitted into the Heavenly Academy? Madame Yuchi was so angry that her facial features were trembling, the white powder on her face was falling down. She pointed at Yiqing Luo and reprimanded her furiously. The Overlord can protect you for a while, but it doesn't mean that he can protect you forever. In Three Springs sect, no matter how capable you are, you have to behave yourself. What future young matriarch, what first wife's daughter? As long as Yi Tianquang handed over the key to power to her, she would be in charge of the inner courtyard. What's more, Yiqing Luo was an abandoned pawn from the Three Springs sect right from the start. Madame Yuchi's heart ached at the thought of her youngest daughter lying on the bed covered in blood. Some time ago, Yiqing Luo had destroyed Yi Qingling's profound jade heart. It wasn't easy to find an opportunity to take revenge on Yiqing Luo, but it was ruined by Yi Fengru. After that, if it wasn't for Yi Tianquang and Yi Qingqian's persuasion, Madame Yuchi wouldn't have endured till now. Now, not only was Yi Qingling's profound jade heart destroyed, her four limbs' tendons were also cut off. This was to completely destroy Yi Qingling. Thinking of these, Madame Yuchi stared at Yiqing Luo with a venomous and vicious gaze. We haven't seen each other for a few days and second concubine's temper seems to have grown. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes dangerously as her chilly gaze glanced sideways at Madame Weiqi. That gaze sent chills down Madame Yuchi's spine. Her body was so stiff that she could not move at all. You want to force me to leave Three Springs sect? Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows as her lips curled into a mocking arc. If I leave, will you be willing? After saying so much, it was just to emphasize one point. If she stayed in Three Springs sect, she would be under Madame Yuchi's control. Yiqing Luo felt that it was ridiculous. Whether she was in Three Springs sect or not, she didn't put Madame Yuchi in her eyes. Even Yi Tianquang couldn't do anything to her. What could a mere concubine do to her? Chapter 127. Madame Yuchi's face turned pale and her graceful face turned ashen. Yi Qing Luo's words had poked at the sore spot in her heart. Madame Yuchi was well aware of Yi Qingling's use of the Dark Forces item and supported it. After all, it was a rare opportunity for Yi Qingling to pass the Heavenly Academy's entrance examination. If she couldn't pass the ability assessment, wouldn't it be a joke if she was assigned to the same class? The destruction of Yi Qingling's profound jade heart must be kept a secret. Therefore, Madame Yuchi was bewitched and agreed to her eldest daughter's suggestion to let Yi Qingling use the Dark Forces item. Unexpectedly, she would be exposed on the spot. This matter must have reached Yi Tianquang's ears. Because of the conflict between Yi Tianquang and the Yuchi family, Yi Tianquang's attitude towards her was much colder. Now that such a thing had happened, her position as the second madam would probably be lost. Originally, I had planned to leave Three Springs sect and stay in the academy's dormitory. But, on account of second madam urging me to stay, I will reluctantly continue to stay in the residence. Yi Qing Luo looked at Madame Yuchi with contempt. Luo is here. I wish second madam good luck. Then, the corner of her lips curled into an evil, cold smile, and she left in a carefree manner. Madame Yuchi was trembling with anger, and only managed to stand firm after being supported by a few old maids. Her heart rose and fell as she stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. Her eyes were filled with ruthlessness and murderous intent. The current Yi Qing Luo was no longer the waste from before. If she wanted to teach her a lesson, she would only be asking for humiliation. Madame Yuchi's chest was filled with anger, but she had no choice but to let Yi Qing Luo leave. Just as Yi Qing Luo expected. By the time Yi Tianquang returned, Madame Yuchi could barely take care of herself and had no time to find trouble with her. Yi Qing Luo was happy with the peace and quiet. Alone in the abandoned courtyard, she concentrated on studying the reward for passing the first level of purgatory, the teleportation technique. Zi Ling brought back good news when she had comprehended the first stage of the teleportation technique. Yi Fengyu had regained consciousness and would be able to get out of bed in 3 days. Yi Qing Luo suddenly realized that she had stayed in the Azure Dew bracelet for another 2 days. Zi Ling fetched some water for Yi Qing Luo to freshen up. Yi Fengyu's awakening and the reunion with Yi Qing Luo, Zi Ling was in a good mood and couldn't stop chattering. Just now when I went to fetch water, the maids of the courtyard all came to please me, and I even heard some interesting news. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows as she casually responded. The maids in the courtyard said that the patriarch expelled Yi Si no, Yi Qing Ling out of the Yi family's genealogy book and out of the Yi family. Kick him out of the Yi family? Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes. Yi Qing Ling's profound jade heart was completely destroyed and her 4 limbs, tendons and arteries were cut off. After being kicked out of the Yi family, would she still be able to live? Yi Tianquang was truly ruthless. He was merciless towards his abandoned children, even if they were his own daughters. The second madam was also stripped of her authority as the mistress of the house by the sect master. She asked the great ancestor to come out of seclusion and regain control of the Yi family's backyard. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased as her hand which was combing her long hair paused. What did you say? Second madam has been. No, it's the next sentence. Zi Ling repeated in a daze. The patriarch invited old Grand Madam to come out of seclusion and regain control of the Yi family. Old Grand Madam Yi Qing Luo's heart was filled with resentment for no reason. She was no stranger to old Grand Madam. Yi Tianquang's mother. A strange old woman. Chapter 128. Ever since his mother passed away, the affairs of the inner courtyard had been handed over to Madame Yuchi to handle, and the old ancestor had also announced that she would be cultivating in seclusion. Who would have thought that the old ancestor would actually come out of seclusion? Let the old ancestor regain control of the Yi clan? Was Yi Tianquang planning to use the old ancestor to suppress her prestige? Or did she want the old ancestor to kill her as he had killed her mother 10 years ago? Miss, things are different now. The old ancestor didn't treat you well in the past because you couldn't cultivate profound qi. Although Ziling was not in the Three Springs sect before the old ancestor went into seclusion. However, after staying in the residence for nearly 10 years, he had some understanding of the various matters. He had also heard of the legends of the old ancestor. What the old ancestor hates the most are ordinary people who can't cultivate profound qi. As the future young mistress of the young sect master, you couldn't cultivate profound qi in the past, so the old ancestor naturally doesn't treat you as well as the other young mistresses. The old ancestor will definitely like the current young lady very much. Yiqing Luo gave a light laugh as her eyes squinted, revealing some profound mysteriousness. I like it, that might not be the case. Yi Tianquang also used profound rank and ability to determine the status of the younger generation of the Yi family. Now that she was famous in Three Springs City, with Yi Tianquang's temperament, he should be worshipping her like a bodhisattva. But Yi Tianquang's disgust towards her deepened. This old ancestor. He was afraid that they had come with ill intentions. All right, we'll deal with it when the time comes. Yiqing Luo placed the comb on the table, got up and smiled. Let's go to the Mu family. Ziling fetched a red muslin coat and draped it over Yiqing Luo. The master and servant left the abandoned courtyard one after another. Yiqing Luo had shone brightly at the assessment plaza and had a close relationship with the Overlord. The attendants in the mansion were also people of great power. When they saw Yiqing Luo, all of them respectfully greeted her as Seventh Miss and Young Matriarch. Over the past few days, countless officials and dignitaries had come to visit, but no one was able to see Yiqing Luo. The followers thought that Yiqing Luo had long left the Three Springs sect. After Yiqing Luo left the residence, the attendants started to discuss. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100, and soon, the news reached the main courtyard. In the main hall of the main courtyard, the incense of sandalwood wafted in spirals, and the sound of the wooden fish being struck was orderly and rhythmic, causing one to be unable to help but feel calm upon hearing it. In the main seat of the main hall sat a woman in a dark luxurious robe. Her face was covered in wrinkles and her appearance was terrifying. Her slender eyes narrowed. Like a soft snake, they were filled with a cold glint. Her whole body was clearly emitting a strong bloody yin qi, but she was fiddling with a string of Buddhist beads, one after another. The scene was extremely discordant. She was precisely Yi Tianquang's mother, the ancestor of the Yi clan. Old Seven has come out from the abandoned courtyard? The old ancestor's hoarse voice was sharp and ear-piercing. Beside the old ancestor stood a delicate and lovely woman. Her hands were placed on the shoulders of the old ancestor, squeezing with appropriate strength. A gentle smile hung on her face. I heard from the followers outside that seventh sister has finally appeared. Get someone to call her over, I want to see. After not seeing her for 10 years, can old Seven still overturn the heavens? The old ancestor's originally slender eyes narrowed into a slit at this moment. Qian will go call her now. Yiqing Qian bowed softly and obediently. When she raised her eyes again, the old ancestor nodded lightly. Yiqing Qian's face revealed a smug sneer. She said that she would leave first and then left the main courtyard. In the bottom of her heart, the complacent mood spread uncontrollably. She couldn't kill Yiqing Luo. But old ancestor absolutely could. Chapter 129. Yiqing Luo and Ziling had already arrived at the Mu family. Ziling led the way in front. Along the way, Zhang Xian heard many maids and attendants whispering to each other. Is that the seventh miss of the Yi family? The young master who is personally taken care of by the eldest young master is her brother? The eldest young master treats the eighth young master very well. In order to take care of him, He even declined the invitation from the Alchemist Guild. Is it because of the 7th miss? Maybe the eldest young master likes the 8th young master? Don't forget to take care of her. Although the eldest young master is very attentive to his patients, I have never seen him so attentive to a patient. There must be something wrong. The group of maids discussed and speculated more boldly. However, it was enough to show that Mu Zifan's reputation in the Mu family and the degree of support from his followers were extremely high. These days, eldest young Master Mu has been taking care of little you? Yiqing Luo lowered her voice and asked Zi Ling. Zi Ling nodded. Yes, Ling also tried to persuade the eldest young master, but he was worried and has been taking care of the 8th young master in the pharmacy these days. Zi Ling didn't cultivate profound qi, so her ears weren't as sensitive as Yiqing Luo's. Naturally, she didn't hear the other maid's discussion. She was very puzzled. How did the miss know that eldest young Master Mu was taking care of the 8th young master? Yiqing Luo's eyes flashed slightly, the cold lines on her face softened a bit. In the pharmacy, Mu Zifan saw Yiqing Luo, the corners of his mouth curved warmly. 7th Mississippi, if eldest young Master Mu regards me as a friend, you can call me Qing Luo. Yiqing Luo walked to the bedside and saw her brother smiling at her. She stroked Yi Fengyu's head. Although his complexion was still a bit pale, it was clear that his spirit was much better. Her worried heart finally calmed down. Mu Zifan didn't argue. Then Qing Luo can call me Zifan. Yiqing Luo smiled. My brother's life was saved by the Mu family. If there is anything I can help with in the future, don't hesitate to look for me. I won't be polite. Mu Zifan gently raised his eyebrows. You two haven't seen each other for a few days, have a good chat. I'll go decoct the medicine for him. Yiqing Luo thanked him. Zi Ling also helped Mu Zifan brew the medicine. Sister, have you been admitted to the Heavenly Academy? Yi Fengyu's eyes lit up as he looked at Yiqing Luo excitedly. After he woke up, Zi Ling roughly told him what happened after he fell into a coma. When he found out that his sister had become an official student of the academy, he was incomparably happy. He was even happier than when he himself had passed the entrance examination. Yiqing Luo sat on the bedside and held his hand. Don't feel depressed, Yiqing Ling had used the Dark Force's weapon to defeat you. This has already violated the Academy's rules. After you recover, we can go through another assessment. I really can. Yi Fengyu happily propped himself up, but just as he moved, he felt a tightness in his chest, causing him to cough violently. Yiqing Luo hurriedly pressed him down. Yes, you can. Old man Guiyu has already agreed to accept you as his disciple, and those masters must allow you to retake the assessment because of Old man Guiyu. Old man Guiyu. Is that Old man Guiyu from the Heavenly Academy? Yi Fengyu's eyes widened in disbelief. After seeing Yiqing Luo nod, he was completely dumbfounded. Old man Guiyu actually agreed to accept him as his disciple? Sister would not lie to him. Chapter 130. So, if you want to enter the academy earlier, cooperate with Zifan's treatment and take good care of your body. Yiqing Luo's smile deepened when she saw the bright smile on her brother's face. After accompanying her brother for a few hours, Yiqing Luo received a message from the Yi family. It said that old Grand Madam had been looking for her for a long time. Yi Fengyu panicked when he heard that old Grand Madam had come out. Sister, why is old Grand Madam looking for you? Yiqing Luo had expected that old Grand Madam would want to see her. But she didn't expect it to be so soon. She didn't expect it to be so urgent. He even sent someone to the Mu family to look for her. It seemed that her hunch was right. Old Grand Madam would never change her attitude towards her just because she could cultivate profound qi. Seeing Yiqing Luo's worried face and anxious look of wanting to get off the bed, Yiqing Luo withdrew the deep thoughts in her eyes and smiled. I became an official student without passing the Heavenly Academy's ability assessment. Of course old Grand Madam wants to see me. Yi Qing Luo touched his head. You stay in the Mu family and take care of your body. I will go see old Grand Madam and tell her about you. Sister, I will accompany you. Be obedient. Yi Qing Luo left Zi Ling in the Mu family and left alone. Before leaving, Mu Zifan sent her out. He was holding a palm-sized brocade bag in his hand. Here are 200 gold coins, take it first. Mu Zifan handed over the brocade bag. The Heavenly Academy has a rule that new students must pay 200 gold coins as registration fee. Yi Qing Luo stared at the brocade bag in front of her. Her eyebrows overflowed with warmth. Mu Zifan's action was completely out of consideration for her. She had been bullied in the Yi family for the past 15 years. 200 gold coins was impossible to come up with. Yi Tianquang would never pay these 200 gold coins for her. Mu Zifan also considered this point. He was worried that when she entered the academy, she would be ridiculed by others because she couldn't pay the registration fee. Don't misunderstand me, this is a loan, you can return it to me in the future. Mu Zifan realized that his behavior was a bit abrupt, his handsome cheeks blushed. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but burst out laughing and was just about to reject his kind intentions. Suddenly, a whirlwind blew from the side. That wind was blowing in an extremely strange manner, as it landed on Yi Qing Luo's face. Her hair was fixed with only a wooden hairpin. As the wind blew, the wooden hairpin fell to the ground. Her fine black hair scattered over her shoulders and danced in the wind. Yi Qing Luo raised her hand to stroke her messy hair. As her gaze looked towards the direction where the whirlwind was blowing from, her brows creased slightly. Qing Luo, are you all right? Mu Zifan didn't notice anything strange. He picked up the wooden hairpin and handed it over along with the brocade bag. Yi Qing Luo withdrew her gaze and took the wooden hairpin. Brother Zifan, I appreciate your kindness, but I still have 200 gold coins. Following that, Yi Qing Luo expressed her thanks and left. They walked all the way to a dark and secluded alley before Yi Qing Luo stopped in her tracks, as she snorted coldly with an expressionless face. Come out! The quiet alley was dead silent. Yi Qing Luo creased her brows and was just about to open her mouth to force the person in the dark to reveal himself. Her waist was suddenly encircled by an arm. The man's fresh and elegant sandalwood fragrance seeped into her nose and wrapped around Yi Qing Luo. You've been following me? Yi Qing Luo's expression was cold. She didn't even turn her head and knew who was behind her. Chapter 131. Luo insisted on hiding me, turning me into a shady man. I could only follow Luo secretly. Dmo Xian pretended to be aggrieved as his voice was still mellow and pleasant to listen to. He rubbed his head against Yi Qing Luo's neck. The soft strands of hair glided over Yi Qing Luo's skin. Her delicate body trembled slightly, and she reached out to pat him. Just as she raised her hand, it was held by the man's slender fingers. With a burst of strength, Yi Qing Luo was turned around and buried into Dmo Xian's arms. The man's purple robe completely wrapped around her. The fragrance of sandalwood on his body was getting stronger and stronger. Dmo Xian. Yi Qing Luo struggled to raise her head, trying to leave his embrace. Can you not be so touchy every time we meet? Oh, Dmo Xian raised his eyebrows, narrowed his peach blossom eyes and nodded seriously. Luo, are you blaming me for not moving my mouth? Saying that, his 5 fingers had already locked onto Yi Qing Luo's lower jaw. The man's body was as hard as iron. She struggled for a long time, but was unable to move. In the next second, Dmo Xian's peerless face was enlarged in her pupils. He bent down and kissed her lip. Oh! Yi Qing Luo's eyes were cold and severe as she stared fiercely at the man and pushed him away with both hands. But, from this angle, when she met that pair of bewitching black eyes, Yi Qing Luo actually went into a daze for a moment. His eyes shone with a bright light. Her long, curly eyelashes trembled from time to time. He kissed her very seriously, which could be seen from the look in his eyes. Until Dmo Xian's lips left hers, Yiqing Luo was still in a trance. Her face was flushed red, and her breathing was uneven. Emperor! Xian. Yiqing Luo's charming eyes widened as balls of burning fury scuttled up. She gritted her teeth, wishing she could strangle Dmo Xian to death. Stinking man! He had taken advantage of her over and over again. She was actually unable to resist at all. How could a dignified overlord behave like a shameless scoundrel? Dmo Xian, you. Before she could finish her angry words, the man's fingers brushed past her hair. A cold sensation touched his scalp. It was as if something had been inserted into it. Yiqing Luo wanted to pull out the thing from her hair, but Dmo Xian held her hand tightly, not allowing her to move. I don't want this. Dmo Xian's other hand opened up his palm. In his palm was Yiqing Luo's wooden hairpin. When did it fall into his hands? Yiqing Luo was shocked. Was it because this man was too powerful, or had her vigilance lowered? She actually allowed Dmo Xian to easily take away the thing from her. You are not allowed to use anything that has been touched by another man. A low and overbearing voice spat out from Dmo Xian's thin lips. As he spoke, he clenched his fist. The wooden hairpin was broken into two halves. You! Yiqing Luo stared at that half of the wooden hairpin. Somewhere in her heart, there was a strange feeling that kept filling up. It seemed like it was going to rush to his mind. However, she could not tell what kind of feeling it was. After some time, Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly as her voice reverted back to its original chilly tone. Dmo Xian, no matter what you need from me or what motive you have for getting close to me, even if you don't say it, I won't ask. After all, with your ability, it's a piece of cake to take my life. For suspecting your motive, I solemnly apologize to you. Chapter 132. Yes, that's all. She and Dmo Xian were just using each other. Dmo Xian's actions and words were just too ambiguous. Even the insensitive her could feel that Dmo Xian was flirting with her. Yiqing Luo didn't want to play the game of feelings and couldn't afford to. Dmo Xian's might belonged to him alone. She didn't need anyone's help and didn't need anyone to rely on. She wouldn't put her heart on a man who couldn't be controlled. Dmo Xian's brows rose slightly, his long and narrow peach blossom eyes squinted. Gazing at Yiqing Luo's serious and cold face, his heart was filled with a doting feeling. He didn't know when this little fellow was able to stir his heart. On the contrary, it became a problem for him to open this little fellow's heart. For the first time in his life, Dmo Xian felt frustrated. Yiqing Luo saw that Dmo Xian didn't respond to her for a long time and frowned slightly, feeling a burst of annoyance. She shook off his hand and turned around to leave. She hadn't taken a step when the man's arm wrapped around her waist again. The only woman I've ever gotten close to is you. A deep and magnetic voice rang in her ears. His thin lips spat out a warm breath, hitting her earlobe bit by bit. You're the only woman I want to touch and kiss. His words had just ended when a cool breeze brought that intoxicating sandalwood scent. Yiqing Luo couldn't open her eyes. She turned her head to avoid this wind, and when she turned her eyes again, Dmo Xian's figure had disappeared in front of her. Yiqing Luo's brows knitted tightly as her vision kept looking around the alley. But only the sandalwood scent in the air confirmed his existence. Dmo Xian's two sentences kept reverberating in her ears. Her heart was beating like a drum. Yiqing Luo's cheeks turned slightly red. She raised her hand and pressed her slender fingers on her chest, as if trying to stop her wildly beating heart. Just at this moment, the dark alley was suddenly filled with a red light. Yiqing Luo's expression changed as she caught a glimpse of a fire leaping about, as she looked towards the direction of the fire vigilantly. A snow-white nine-tailed fox stepped on the flames and came over. His 9 tails swayed in the wind, looking majestic. Behind Nine-Tailed Fox was dragging a luxurious carriage. The Nine-Tailed Fox strode gracefully, seemingly walking slowly, but in the blink of an eye, she had already arrived in front of Yi-Ching Luo. There was no one in the carriage. Only Nine-Tailed Fox stood quietly in front of her, staring at her with a pair of strange black eyes. Yi-Ching Luo knew this Nine-Tailed Fox. Wasn't this the same sacred beast Nine-Tailed Fox that Dmo Xian had used to make a grand entrance during the ability assessment? You want me to go up? Yi-Ching Luo and the Nine-Tailed Fox looked at each other and pointed to the carriage. The Nine-Tailed Fox nodded and rubbed its sharp beak against her body. It pushed her to the edge of the carriage. When Yi-Ching Luo's body neared the carriage, those 9 tails had already wrapped her up and dragged her onto the carriage. The Nine-Tailed Fox's 4 limbs moved, and a fiery light flickered as she soared into the sky with the carriage. Yi-Ching Luo sat in the carriage, and the expression on her face could no longer maintain the usual indifference. Her heart was deeply shaken. That indescribable feeling flowed in her heart. Faintly, it seemed like she was about to grasp something. Dmo Xian's peerless face kept appearing in her mind. He was actually so considerate for her. Chapter 133. Three Springs Sect, Inner Courtyard. Yi-Ching Qian knelt on the ground. Her gentle eyes were glistening with tears. Old Grandmadam, please calm down. 7th sister must be too worried about 8th brother. That's why she ignored old Grandmadam. She seemed to be helping Yi-Ching Luo out of trouble, but in her words, she was accusing Yi-Ching Luo of disrespecting her elders. Old Grandmadam's face darkened. Her hand that was fiddling with the Buddha beads also stopped. Yi-Ching Qian lowered her eyes, her long hair covered the smugness and coldness in her eyes. She softened her voice and said, Qian has sent someone to the Mu residence to call 7th sister back. Listening to Yi-Ching Qian's gentle words, old Grandmadam's cold face softened a little. Yi-Ching Qian was the biggest hope of the Yi family. If it wasn't for her son, how could she let Yi-Ching Luo be the successor of 3 Springs Sect? How could she tolerate such a waste who had been the first daughter of the Yi family for so many years? Just out of seclusion, old Grandmadam heard that Yi-Ching Ling was ruined by that little slut and was now driven out of the Yi family. After all, she was her granddaughter, and a granddaughter with good talent. Old Grandmadam's heart was somewhat reluctant. Even her disgust for Yi-Ching Luo increased. That little slut, did she really think that she could be lawless just because she could cultivate profound qi? The old ancestor's long and sinister eyes reflected a cold light. She waved to Yi-Ching Qian. All right, it's not your fault. Why are you kneeling there? Come to Grandma. Yi-Ching Qian pursed her red lips and looked gentle. Qian just don't want old Grandmadam to be angry. Ha ha. Qian is still as kind as ever. Suddenly, a clear laughter came from outside the door. She saw Ling Fenghua, dressed in a dragon costume, with his hands behind his back, walking slowly. Beside him, there was Yi Tianquang with a smiling face. Your Highness! Yi-Ching Qian saw Ling Fenghua, her face flushed. She immediately straightened up and wanted to greet him. But suddenly remembered that old Grandmadam was still at the side. She immediately stamped her feet shyly and walked over to old Grandmadam. The woman's shy behavior made Ling Fenghua couldn't help but laugh out loud. The elder ancestor's usually expressionless face also revealed a hint of a smile. Your Royal Highness, I haven't seen you for many years. I've missed you. The elder ancestor squinted his eyes and sized up Ling Fenghua. Ling Fenghua chuckled. My father often talks about the heroic deeds of elder ancestor. If elder ancestor is free, please come to the palace and reminisce with my father. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Ling Fenghua directly stated his purpose of coming. The 7th Miss of the Yi clan is famous in the 3 Springs Sect, but she is also the future crown princess that my father personally ordered. Now that she is with the Overlord, my reputation has been tarnished. He let out a heavy sigh, his face filled with disappointment. The smile on the old ancestor's face was a little stiff. Your Highness, you mean, now that the elder ancestor has come out of seclusion, I think that this engagement. A hint of greed flashed in Ling Fenghua's eyes. Towards Yiqing Luo, he was determined to get her. Especially the current Yiqing Luo, he really couldn't help but want to tame her. He wanted to see her humbly, kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy. Yiqing Qian, who had followed Ling Fenghua for many years, was an exquisite person. How could she not perceive his thoughts? Upon hearing his words, Yiqing Qian understood that this time Ling Fenghua came, not for her, but to borrow the power of the old Grand Madam to force Yiqing Luo to marry him. Yiqing Qian's face immediately turned pale. Chapter 134. Dizun? Everyone's expression changed as they exchanged glances. Yi Tianquang's but hadn't even warmed up when he immediately got up in a flurry and grabbed the manservant's collar. What did you say? Dizun? Yes, I'm absolutely not mistaken. That's the Overlord's sacred beast, the nine-tailed fox. The servant nodded with absolute certainty. Dmo Xian was the only one in the world who owned a white nine-tailed fox. Overlord. Old Grand Madam mumbled softly as she seemed to have thought of something as she turned her head to look at Yiqing Qian. Seemed to have mentioned that the Overlord is Seventh's master. Yiqing Qian was still in a daze. The young lady's delicate face was flushed red. When he suddenly heard the old ancestor's question, he came back to his senses and gave a soft "N." That little bitch. Yi Tianquang's expression immediately changed. Could it be that it was that little bitch who instigated Dizun? Father, I don't think it's possible. Yiqing Qian didn't even think and interrupted Yi Tianquang's words. The Overlord is high and mighty. He is the number one person in the Nirvana realm. Why would he go to war for Seventh Sister? When Yi Tianquang heard this, he felt that what Yi Tianquang said was very reasonable. How could His Excellency Dizun come looking for trouble with Three Springs sect for a little slut? Offending one of the four great sects was equivalent to offending all four great sections. After all, the four great sects were the guardians of the god race. Even the Overlord had to consider the balance of the Nirvana realm. Thinking of this, Yi Tianquang heaved a sigh of relief. Let's go out and welcome His Majesty first, and find out the purpose of His Majesty's visit. Finished speaking, Yi Tianquang quickly walked out of the hall. Yiqing Qian supported old Grand Madam, as she followed closely behind. There was only one person left in the hall. The manservant knelt on the ground and looked at the man carefully. Your Highness, you want to go over? Before he could finish, Ling Fenghua kicked him in the chest and sent him flying. Ling Fenghua's eyes were filled with anger. He clenched his fists and suppressed his anger as he left the hall. Dizun. It was the Overlord again. He was the dignified crown prince, yet he was ignored to this extent. On what basis could Dmo Xian be revered by the masses? He was the crown prince, the future monarch of the West Continent. The injustice in his heart made Ling Fenghua walk even faster. Soon, they arrived at the entrance of the Three Springs sect. Not far from the mansion gate, a huge white nine-tailed fox stood there proudly. Its four limbs were burning with sparks, gleaming with a dazzling brilliance. 9 fluffy and furry tails swayed continuously. Behind Nine-Tailed Fox was dragging a luxurious and exquisite carriage. Yiqing Qian had seen this nine-tailed fox during the ability assessment. At this moment, he blurted out, "That's the Overlord's sacred beast. It's really the Overlord is here." The people of the Yi clan immediately knelt down. "Lord Overlord, you have come to my humble abode. Yi Tianquang, the leader of the Three Springs sect, is late to welcome you. Please forgive me, Lord Overlord." Even the old ancestor, who had been in a high position for a long time, knelt down at this moment. There was no movement in the carriage. However, the people from the Yi clan did not dare to make a move. He could only kneel on the ground and wait for the Overlord's response. After about half a stick of incense, old Grand Madam's face faintly showed anger. She was used to being in a high position for a long time. Even the monarch of the West Continent had to give her some face when he saw her. 4 decades she had never knelt to anyone. At this time, she was forced to kneel on the ground for such a long time by an overlord. She was naturally unhappy. Chapter 135. Your Highness. Yi Tianquang lowered his voice and carefully looked up at the carriage, then glanced at Ling Fenghua. This look was clearly asking him to kneel down. Ling Fenghua's face darkened. Although Dmo Xian's status was irreplaceable in the entire Nirvana realm. But in any case, he was still the crown prince. If it was in private, it was nothing to kneel down to Dmo Xian. But now Ling Fenghua's heart was full of injustice, jealousy and resentment towards Dmo Xian. How could he be willing to kneel down to Dmo Xian in front of so many people? Not only did Ling Fenghua not kneel down, but he also straightened his back, raised his chin and reached out to grab Yi Qingqian's arm. Qian, let's go, follow this highness to the backyard, let this highness see if your profound grade has improved these days. These words were obviously a blatant provocation to Dmo Xian. So what if Dmo Xian was the number one in the Nirvana realm? After all, he was the palace lord of the evil palace, despised by the world. In any case, he was the future monarch of the West continent. His status was much higher than Dmo Xian's. Especially, the Yi Qing Luo that Dmo Xian fancied was a waste that he didn't want and threw away. And he got the most favored genius of the Yi family, Yi Qingqian. No matter how he looked at it, Dmo Xian couldn't be compared to him. Ling Fenghua's inexplicable sense of self-confidence once again inexplicably welled up in his heart. But Yi Qingqian, who had always been obedient to him, knelt on the ground and refused to get up. Qian. Ling Fenghua unhappily lowered his voice. Are you going to reject me? Yi Qingqian's cheeks were flushed with shyness as she stared at the carriage. Her mind was full of Dmo Xian at the assessment square, that graceful and outstanding look, that immortal-like voice. Her heart's unwillingness and her overflowing self-confidence made her believe that she was the most suitable woman for Dmo Xian. Yi Qing Luo could seduce Dmo Xian. Naturally she could too. Yi Qingqian directly shook off Ling Fenghua's hand and said in a charming voice, Your Highness, that is the Overlord, even your Highness cannot be rude to the Overlord. Ling Fenghua was so angry that his whole body was trembling, and his face was livid. Especially when the surrounding commoners looked at him with disdain and mockery, a ball of anger surged within him. Ling Fenghua angrily strode towards the nine-tailed fox. He pointed at the carriage and said sternly, Overlord, since you're here, then show yourself. Are you hiding in the carriage because you don't dare to show yourself? Before he could get close to the carriage, the nine-tailed fox's tail suddenly stretched out and swept the ground. Ling Fenghua tripped and fell to the ground, his face landing heavily on the ground. That powerful wave of air caused Ling Fenghua's heart to tremble. This nine-tailed fox was so powerful. Around them, the commoners could not help but laugh out loud. The commoners were delighted to see Ling Fenghua's wretched appearance. Ling Fenghua's face was burning like fire, as if he had been skinned and stood in front of everyone. No matter how he looked at it, he felt that everyone present was mocking him. Ling Fenghua was ashamed and resentful. He flicked his sleeve and turned around with the intention of leaving. At this time, a soft sound came from the carriage. Following that, the carriage's curtain was lifted. I just woke up from a nap, why is it so lively? An extremely lazy voice, with a hint of enchanting hoarseness could be heard. Inside the carriage, a lady dressed in red was lazily propping her head up, reclining on the soft blanket. A head of fine black hair hung on the lady's shoulder. That lady had an exquisite face, although she was young, but she had already revealed a mature and cool enchanting charm. Especially that pair of eyes which could charm all living beings, was suffused with a coquettish charm. It could captivate one's soul. Yi Qing Luo? Chapter 136. Yi Qing Luo's slender fingers touched the corner of the curtain. Just as she stepped out of the carriage, the 9 tails of the nine-tailed fox had already curled up her body and sent her steadily to the ground. This action made the Yi family's mood extremely complicated. The Overlord's sacred beast actually respected Yi Qing Luo so much? Could it be the Overlord and Yi Qing Luo came to Three Springs together? The group of people kneeling on the ground, their legs were already numb, but still did not dare to stand up. Your Highness is really well educated, making noise and provocation in public. Are you afraid that the world doesn't know that your Lung family is so awesome that you want to compete with the Overlord for the world? Yi Qing Luo spread out her feather fan, covering half of her face, and gave a low laugh. Her tone was light, as if she was talking about the weather. But the meaning of that sentence made Ling Fenghua's face change. Compete with the Overlord for the world? How could he have this ability? Moreover, Yi Qing Luo clearly wanted to involve the whole royal family. Seventh Miss Yi, you can't talk nonsense. I have great respect for all the capable people in the world. Ling Fenghua was so angry that the corner of his mouth twitched, but on the surface, he still had to hang a gentle smile. He took a few deep breaths and looked at Yi Qing Luo. But Seventh Miss Yi, as my fiancée, you are entangled with the Overlord. Is this the upbringing of Seventh Miss Yi? Do I have upbringing? Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes narrowed slightly, glancing at the group of people who were kneeling on the ground. Her line of sight was fixed on old Grand Madam. I lost my mother when I was 5 years old. What upbringing can I have? Don't talk nonsense with this young lord. Immediately, she sneered. Moreover, Ling Fenghua, do you have the right to question me about my relationship with Diamo Xian? Her 5 fingers moved, closed the feather fan, and the smile on the corner of her mouth instantly turned cold. Just based on the fact that you and Yi Qing Qian had an affair behind this young matriarch's back, you had already let this young matriarch divorce you a month ago. Ling Fenghua's face darkened. Seventh sister, don't talk nonsense. Yi Qing Qian glanced at the carriage in a fluster, fearing that Diamo Xian would misunderstand, and hurriedly explained, Eldest sister and His Highness are innocent. You. Innocent? Do you really think we're blind? Just now, Ling Fenghua very sincerely invited you to the backyard, to test whether your profound level has improved or not. Yi Qing Luo sneered and deliberately emphasized on the word test. He raised his voice at the end, and his tone was filled with ridicule. The meaning of his words changed. Yi Qing Qian bit her pink lips tightly, unable to refute. Ling Fenghua was also secretly annoyed. How could he let his anger rise to his head, and say something he shouldn't have said in the heat of the moment? The atmosphere instantly became strange. At this moment, old Grand Madam, who was kneeling in front, raised her head slightly, and a pair of malicious eyes stared coldly at Yi Qing Luo. However, he glanced at the carriage out of the corner of his eye. Seventh brother, bring Lord Di Zun out. Yi Qing Luo played with her feather fan as she tilted her head and blinked innocently. Diamo Xian isn't here. Not here? Not only did the Yi clan's people's faces turn green and red, even Ling Fenghua's expression changed. The surrounding people shook their heads and sighed lightly. They didn't expect the Overlord to be not here. They thought they could see the man in the rumors. But even if they could see the Overlord's only sacred beast, it was still a blessing. As a result, the people stared at the white, arrogant, 9-tailed fox in a daze. Yi Qing Luo, are you playing with us? Yi Qing Qian stared at the carriage shyly and immediately changed her expression. She turned hostile faster than flipping a book. Playing? How did I play with you? Yi Qing Luo raised her eyebrows disapprovingly. Did I say that Diamo Xian is here? Yi Qing Qian's words were deflated, and she bit her lower lip unwillingly. Yes. Yi Qing Luo didn't say it, but... Chapter 137. Old 7, what's going on? Old Grand Madam's face was gloomy as she was helped up by Yi Tianquang. After all, she was old. After kneeling for about the time it took to burn a stick of incense, her legs were already a little numb. At this time, her whole weight was supported by Yi Tianquang's body. Thinking that she had actually knelt for so long in front of so many people, old Grand Madam's face became increasingly gloomy. I want to ask you, what's going on? Yi Qing Luo's gaze swept around, pretending to be puzzled. Why are old grandmadam and father kneeling at the door? Suddenly, she nodded in realization and scratched her head embarrassedly. Did old grandmadam and father specially come to welcome me to celebrate my admission into the Heavenly Academy? Old grandmadam originally stood firm. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, she was so angry that her body suddenly trembled, her slender eyes narrowed into a slit. Welcome Yi Qing Luo? Could Yi Qing Luo afford such a grand welcome? Of course I can. Yi Qing Luo seemed to see through old grandmadam's thoughts and smiled sweetly. Her charming eyes shone with an innocent luster, her eyebrows curved. Just now old grandmadam has knelt for such a long time, there was no sound of thunder, why can't I accept it? You, old seven, in any case you are the young matriarch of Three Springs sect, mind your words. Old grandmadam's eyes flashed viciously, her eyes were deep and treacherous. This little slut was really different from the past. How could the previous Yi Qing Luo have such a pair of such soul-stirring eyes? What was the reason that caused the weak and useless old seven to have such a big change for 15 years? If old grandmadam really thinks that I am the young matriarch, when eldest sister provoked me, old grandmadam should have spoken up to defend her. Yi Qing Luo sneered. I don't have a mother to discipline me, could it be that eldest sister also doesn't know how to be taught? Her voice fell abruptly, and she continued the conversation. That's true, if eldest sister had a good family education, as a daughter of a wealthy family, she wouldn't have gone behind her sister's back and fooled around with her future brother-in-law. The last sentence, although it was a soft murmur, but the surrounding people, who couldn't hear it clearly, who could not hear it, seeing the commoners pointing and gossiping, Yi Qing Qian bit her lower lip in embarrassment and indignation. How could she maintain her usual gentleness on her face? Yi Qing Qian was thin-skinned, and only felt that the surrounding gazes made her face burn up. Her small hands gripped the wide sleeves of her robe tightly as she suppressed the surging anger in her chest. She tried her best to make her voice sound more gentle. Seventh sister, if you try your best to misunderstand me and slander me, I can only die to prove my innocence. With that, she lifted her sleeves and wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. Then, he crashed into the wall of the Three Springs sect residence. Qian Er, the old ancestor and Yi Tian Kuang cried out in alarm. Just as Yi Qing Qian's head was about to hit the wall, a burst of profound qi shot towards her. That strong airwave caused Yi Qing Qian's body to flip over. Yi Qing Qian fell heavily onto the ground. The exquisite makeup on her face had been covered by dust, and her carefully coiffed hair was scattered. Qian, I'm sorry, I wanted to save you, but I didn't control my strength in a hurry. Ling Fenghua, who was standing in the distance, immediately retracted his hand and took a few steps to Yi Qing Qian's side and held her in his arms. Seeing that Yi Qing Qian was seeking death, Ling Fenghua's reflex action was to stop her with profound qi. Chapter 138. Die to prove your sincerity? Yi Qing Luo sneered, her pink lips hooked up. Why do I feel that eldest sister is so ashamed that she wants to commit suicide to escape punishment because I exposed you in front of everyone? Yi Qing Qian, who was about to faint, was so angry that she coughed a few times. A mouthful of blood gushed up her throat. Wah, she spat it out. Ling Fenghua was hugging her, and this spurt all sprayed onto his face. Ling Fenghua only felt that his face was warm, and a bloody smell filled his nose. His whole face was covered with sticky liquid. Ha ha ha, in this way, not only are your skin intertwined, but your blood is also mixed. Yi Qing Luo burst out laughing. A scumbag and a white lotus, a perfect match. Even God thought so, and even gave them a color for this perfect match. Yi Qing Qian's breath was stuck in her throat, and her mouth was full of the taste of blood. After hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, she couldn't bear it anymore. Her delicate body twitched violently, her eyes rolled, and she completely fainted. Ling Fenghua's face was sprayed with blood, and his expression couldn't be seen clearly. However, from the aura released from his body, it was enough to show the anger in his heart at this time. If it weren't for so many people watching, if it weren't for the presence of the Yi family, Ling Fenghua really wanted to throw the woman in his arms out. Ling Fenghua took a deep breath, trying to calm his mood. But when he breathed, he inhaled a nose full of blood. He raised his sleeve impatiently and wiped his face with all his might. "Your Royal Highness, thank you for saving Qian Er's life. Come, carry eldest miss away." How could Yi Tianquang not feel Ling Fenghua's anger at this time? He hurriedly called a few rough maids to carry Yi Qingqian back to the room. "Let Madame Yuqi take care of her. If Qian Er's body recovers, she will make up for her mistake," Old Grand Madame added. Old Grand Madame really liked Yi Qingqian from the bottom of her heart. After all, such a well-behaved and talented junior like Yi Qingqian, how could she not like her? Letting the maids take care of her was not as good as the care of her biological mother. Yi Qingluo could tell from Old Grand Madame's words that she pitied Yi Qingqian. The corners of her lips twitched in a self-deprecating manner. She narrowed her enchanting eyes, which were suffused with a cold light, reflecting a profound meaning. Although she had already expected the old ancestor's attitude towards her. But in Yi Qingluo's heart, there were still some doubts. After all, she was the legitimate daughter of the Yi family and the future young sect master. It was one thing for Yi Tianquang to hate her so much. Why, in her memory, this elder ancestor, who used to determine the status of the younger generation in the Yi clan, also hated her so much? There wasn't the slightest bit of excitement and agitation from her being able to cultivate profound qi and getting to know Dmo Xian. Old Grand Madame retracted her gaze as she watched Yi Qingqian being carried away by the old maid. "Old 7, that's enough. How can you make such a ruckus in public?" That slender cold eyes which resembled a venomous snake stared coldly at Yi Qingluo. "In the past, there was no one to discipline you. Now that I have come out of seclusion, you will be personally disciplined by me in the future." As soon as Old Grand Madame's words fell, Yi Tianquang's face revealed a look of ecstasy. In his heart, he secretly thought, if Old Grand Madame was personally disciplining her, would he be afraid that this cheap girl would not be disciplined? But these words made Yi Qingluo's expression, that seemed like a smile, yet not a smile, turned into a belly laugh. She laughed like a flower branch trembling. Her flirtatious red dress floated along with the trembling of her body, like a blooming gorgeous rose. "I'm afraid Old Grand Madame has forgotten that in a few days, I will be reporting to the Heavenly Academy." Discipline her? She hadn't been disciplined for the past 15 years.